Oh, one of the only farms in Boston.
Indeed.
Not too many left.
As a friendly reminder, our friendly banter at the beginning of the meeting is being recorded and streamed live onto YouTube. Just a friendly reminder. Any word from Baker or Edwards? Arroyo's having some technical difficulties and will join when he can, so will Wu. So right now it's Baker and Edwards.
Yeah, different quarter, but no worry.
I'm going to check in again one more time for Baker or Edwards. Let's give them a few more minutes and then we'll get started. All right, just going to do a final run through. I think we have Edwards. Do we have Baker, Arroyo, or Wu?
I'm
Okay.
here. I'm here.
Oh, Baker's here, wonderful. Arroyo and Wu both have indicated they'll be just a few minutes late. Arroyo's having some technical difficulties. So Carrie, if we're good on your end.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, and everything's good on the YouTube? Excellent. Bishop, you're okay? You're all set? Madam Clerk, you're good?
Yes.
Madam Clerk, are you all set?
I'm all set. Thank you, Madam President.
Excellent, wonderful. I think we will go ahead and get started. It is 12:05. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll to ascertain the presence of a quorum?
Certainly. Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Baker.
Yeah.
Councilor Bach. Councilor Bach.
Present.
Oh, thank you. Councilor Braden.
Present.
Councilor Campbell. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Edwards. Councilor Edwards.
Present.
Thank you. Councilor Asabi George.
Present.
Councilor Flaherty.
Here.
Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Flynn.
Here.
Councilor Flynn. Councilor Janey.
Present.
Councilor Mejia.
Here. Present.
Councilor O'Malley.
Present.
And Councilor Wu. Madam President,
I'm
we have a
here,
quorum.
Madam Clerk.
Is that
Sorry, I was
Councilor
just having some
Campbell?
technical- Yes, thank
okay?
you.
Good. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've been informed by our clerk that a quorum is present. We'll begin our meeting with our clergy and the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I will invite Councilor Flaherty up, who will introduce Bishop Dickerson, who is a great friend to me personally and to this council. Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And for those that don't know Bishop William E. Dickerson II, he was raised in Boston. He's a proud graduate of the Boston Latin School and a longtime husband of Luella Dickerson, Lady Luella, and proud father to three children. Will Dickerson III, who worked, as you guys all know, worked in my office and doing great things for the city of Boston, and may actually even be joining our ranks at some point. And also a grandfather to 5 grandkids. He and Luella both founded the Greater Love Tabernacle Church back in 1989. His contributions to our community in our city here are hard to summarize in just a few sentences. Very civically minded and an active member of our city. He's the pastor of the Restoration Ministries, an organization designed to train 21st century pastors. He's also the president of the Greater Love Community Cares, which is a nonprofit philanthropic agency that helps economically marginalized individuals and families. He's also involved in many charitable organizations and boards, and has taught and counseled troubled youth and adults. He's also spoken frequently at schools and in jails and prisons. He's a former Boston public school teacher and former adjunct college professor. He's also a former chaplain for the Boston Police Department and former member of the National Chaplains Association. Since probably the mid to late 80s, he and others have led walkthroughs through our neighborhoods, particularly around the issue of gun violence. Sadly, Bishop Dickerson has probably presided over the most funeral services for those that have been killed due to gun violence, but compassionately, like Simon and Cyrene, he has been there for so many families that have lost their loved ones through senseless violence. So that said, I'm honored to have him here with us. I'm honored to call him a very close friend of mine. I know he's close friends with several others here, and grateful that he had a few minutes today to take out of his very busy day to join us for today's invocation. So with that, I want to welcome Bishop William E. Dickerson II. Thank you for your time and look forward to your words of wisdom and inspiration.
Thank you to Council President, my sister Kim Janey, who I met years ago advocating for quality education for young people in Boston, to our counselor in our church district, Greater Love Tabernacle, Dorchester, Andrea Campbell, and also a fellow alum of Boston Latin. God bless you. And to, of course, Michael Flaherty, thank you for the warm introduction. A longtime friend and brother. I appreciate the work you've done in the city over the years, and it is not gone unnoticed, and I thank God for you. And of course, there are many others that are here. I thank God for you. And of course, I have to mention Maureen Feeney, who's she grew up in the area where our church is located, over there in Franklin Field. So I got to mention that. And she's always been such a sweet sister. And I thank God for you. And so many others are on the call today. Of course, Julia lets you know that one vote does count, you know. And I see that Ed continues to forge ahead with the legacy of his dad, Ray Flynn, former mayor, who I worked closely with years ago. But we are praying for a peaceful holiday for everyone. As we approach the close of this year, I want to thank the Boston City Council for your arduous work and efforts over the years in terms of keeping our residents together. As this city and nation deal with the pandemic of COVID, we continue, we want you know that we want you to know that we continue to work to make sure that peace prevails in our community. And we appreciate that you're continuing to work for peace in our community. Jeremiah, the prophet, states in Jeremiah 29, verse 7, seek the peace of the city. As it prospers, so will you. So that's what we are desiring to see Boston prosper as that beloved city that we so often have heard and have read in Dr. King's literature. And so I want to let the council know that, you know, as one of the clergy persons of this city, I want you to know that you can rely on the clergy of the city of Boston to continue to partner with you as we move forward to stomp out and erase unjust situations, poverty, violence, racism, despair in Boston, because I know that's on your heart to come against those things. And so as Micah, the prophet, states, Micah 6, verse 8, he has shown you, O man, what God requires of you, to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. So I pray for peace for our city, peace for the city council. I pray for peace throughout our nation and the world in the midst of these uncertain times. So I know that sometimes you get discouraged, you get frustrated, but I encourage you all to turn to one another, but more importantly, turn to God. And I say that with respect to all faith traditions, that we cannot handle these things by ourselves. We need the strength of God to direct us and to help us. So I encourage you as you go forward, as we look forward in the rest of this year, do all you can to put a smile on somebody else's face. Do all you can to encourage those that are going down the road of pessimism to be more optimistic, even as we hear about somebody is sick or someone has died because of COVID and other types of health disparities, because we know that there are many people that are being healed and recovering too. So let's pray. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, as we look to you for strength and guidance, we pray for the Boston City Council. We pray, Lord God, for Mayor Walsh and his staff. We pray, dear God, that you will give us all the audacity to confront, Lord, the hatred, racism, bigotry, and all types of evils. Father, as this council engages in the politics of the city, keep them with a heart of compassion for those that are suffering, Lord, those that are dealing, Lord, with this pandemic and they're not dealing with it so well. Father, we pray that you would touch, Lord, each one of us, that we might present a more just society. Father, we ask that you would, Lord, strengthen the poor and the marginalized in this city. Look upon the incarcerated community in the midst of this pandemic, Lord, and let there be peace and safety for them as well, because they will come, many of them will come back to our communities. Father, protect this council, the first responders, Lord, the police officers, EMT workers, firefighters, doctors, nurses. Protect our troops far and near. Father, I pray that you'll guide this council in this meeting today. Let it be fruitful and productive, and be with them throughout the course of this year and help us, Lord, to see, Lord, victory as we enter into a new year. We thank you and we give you praise with respect to all faith traditions. In Jesus' name, thank God. Amen. God bless you
Amen.
all. Love you all.
Amen.
Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless.
Bishop. It was so good to see you. You're certainly welcome to sit with us if you'd like. At this time, we're going to pledge allegiance and then we're going to move on with our agenda. You can feel free to leave at your leisure. Thank you again, Bishop.
God bless you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
Of the United States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice
for all.
For all.
Thank you again. Madam Clerk, if you would please amend the attendance report to include Councilor Arroyo, who has joined us. I think we are still expecting Councilor Wu, and she will join when she can. Now on to the first order of business, which is the approval of our minutes. Seeing and hearing no discussion on the matter, the chair moves to approve the minutes from the last meeting as presented. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yeah.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Janey.
Yes.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Yes. Here.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. And Councilor Wu. Madam President, the minutes have been approved.
Thank you so much. The minutes of the last meeting stand as approved. We'll move on to communications from His Honor the Mayor, starting with docket 1141.
Docket 1141, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $300,000 in the form of a grant for the FY21 Burn State Justice Assistance JAG grant awarded by the United States Department of Justice, passed through the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund Operation Shotstopper, a partnership between the BPD Youth Violence Strike Force and the Mass State Police Gang Unit. The initiative will focus on suppressing gun violence, targeting violent impact players, and patrolling hotspots. The partnership will develop and document intelligence and enhance community trust.
Thank you so much. Docket 1141 will be referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice. We'll move on to docket 1142.
Thank you. Docket 1142, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $235,175 in the form of a grant for the FY20 Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant Program awarded by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs to be administered by the Environment Department. The grant will fund planning for a new waterfront landscape with increased educational access to the harbor at Fort Point Channel and Boston Children's Museum waterfront.
Thank you so much. Docket 1142 will be referred to the Committee on Environment, Resiliency, and Parks. We'll move on to docket 1143.
Thank you. Docket 1143, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $200,000 in the form of a grant for the special initiative awarded by the Bar Fund to be administered by the Mayor's Office. The grant will fund planning and implementation capacity for the Office of Equity.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia, who is chair of the Committee on Civil Rights. Councilor Mejia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a grant of $200,000
that will go towards funding and implementing the Office of Equity in the city of Boston. I know we normally have protocols for grants of this certain value, but we're running out of time in the legislative year, and this grant is important towards creating space for equity in our city. Our office has been focused on issues of equity since we got into office, looking at who has a voice and who doesn't. Having an agency within the city dedicated to advancing issues around equity is a step in the right direction towards becoming an all means all city. I move that we suspend the rules and pass to accept this grant. And thank you for putting it in my committee. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Councilor Mejia seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1143. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Docket 1143, Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Janey.
Yes.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. And Councilor Wu. Madam President, docket number 1143 has passed.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to reports of committees, starting with docket 1035.
Docket 1035, the Committee on Strong Women, Families and Communities, to which was referred on October 7th, 2020, docket number 1035. Message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $961,086.29 in the form of a grant for the FY21 Youth Works, awarded by the Mass Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development, passed through the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation of Boston, to be administered by the Youth Engagement and Employment. Submits a report recommending the order ought to pass.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden, who is chair of the Committee on Strong Women, Families, and Communities. Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Strong Women, Families and Communities held a public hearing on Friday, December 4th, and heard testimonies on behalf of the administration from Rashid Cope, Director of the Department of Youth Engagement and Employment, Rashad rather, at Boston Centers for Youth and Families, BCYF, Eduardo Franco, Manager of Youth Programs and Partnerships at Youth Engagement and Employment, and Ms. Terera Lyons, Manager of Youth Employment and Development. The YEE partners with hundreds of community-based and nonprofit organizations across the city, partnered to provide a meaningful employment opportunities to thousands of Boston youth aged 15 to 18. This grant would fund Boston's Success Link employment program will support the Boston Success Link employment program for summer of 2020. I recommend that this docket ought to pass. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor Braden. Councilor Braden seeks acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1035. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Docket 1035, Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards. Councilor Edwards.
Yes. Sorry, I was on mute.
That's okay. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn. Councilor Flynn.
He's on mute.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu. Madam President, docket 1035 has passed.
Thank you so much. We'll now move on to docket 0225.
Docket 0225, the Committee on Government Operations, to which is referred on January 15, 2020, docket number 0225. An ordinance to create the Special Commission on Ending Family Homelessness submits a report recommending the ordinance ought to pass in a new draft.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Counselor Edwards, who is chair of our Committee on Government Operations. Counselor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. We have a very long committee report with a lot of edits. And so ultimately, I'm going to quickly summarize the process of how we got here, and then I will turn it over to the lead sponsor. But the ultimate recommendation is that we would pass this in an amended form. As such, Councillor Sabi George referred to the committee on January 29, 2020, this ordinance that would create a special commission on ending family homelessness. We had a hearing on this on September 14th, and then we had a working session on October 1st. This essentially would create this commission to develop an actionable, measurable plan to end family homelessness in the city of Boston. We are all actually very excited, and I can speak to all of the speakers who came from DND, from Family Aid Boston, from Horizons for Homeless Children, from Sojourner House, from Mosaic Jacobian. We had a Project Hope. All of these organizations and individuals from the city side and from nonprofits, as well as the councilors that attended, were overwhelmingly excited and supportive of Councillor Sabi George's leadership. We discussed objectives of the homelessness. We also had many good suggestions about how we make sure that the homeless individuals are centered in this process, that we're not having such a commission so much about them, but having a commission with them, right? Nothing about them without them. And ultimately, there was such good agreement and such excitement about this process. Now, as I mentioned, this committee report goes into pages of individual amendments and additions. And this is, again, prompted by many of the suggestions from the individuals in the community. Just to summarize very quickly, we wanted to add certain staff. We wanted to make sure that there was some funding. We wanted to make sure that we had confirmed reports to the city council. We wanted to make sure that there was a standard of continuum of care, and that we were all moving again towards the stipends or some sort of compensation for the individuals who are unstably housed or homeless to be able to participate. All of this is, I could say honestly, exciting and wonderful, and a reflection of Councillor Sabi George's heart and leadership in this matter. If it's okay with Madam President, I would like to turn it over to her to summarize or to add any additional points.
Thank you so much for that thorough committee report. At this time, the chair recognizes Councillor Sabi George, who is the only sponsor of this ordinance. Thank you so much. Councillor Sabi George, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and thank you to Councillor Edwards for shepherding this ordinance through the Government Ops Committee. After many years of discussion with my family shelter provider roundtable, I'm so thrilled that today we will be voting on the creation of this special commission to end family homelessness. This commission will gather together the necessary government officials, practitioners on the ground, and families themselves to make policy changes that have real and measurable impact in the lives of our families who do not have housing stability. As I've said many times before, we have approximately 5,000 homeless students in the Boston Public Schools. Every single school in the district has a student who is experiencing homelessness. There are students who do not have safe and stable places to call home. For decades, family homelessness has been ignored at every level of government. Now we truly begin to correct this and get the resources in place so that homelessness is, at most, a brief and one-time experience for a family. This ordinance would not be possible without the Family Shelter Roundtable, in particular Christy Staples from United Way, Danielle Ferrier from Heading Home, Kate Barand from Horizons for Homeless Children, Larry Siemens from Family Aid Boston, Mosaic Jacobian from Higher Ground, Christine Dixon from Project Hope, Felicia Smith from the Sojourner House, and all of the providers who have been with us, and those with lived experience who have worked with us on this work every single day. I also would like to thank the mayor and Chief Dillon for creating the special advisor position on family homelessness, and everyone at D&D who has continued to participate in those roundtable discussions. I'd also like to thank our partners at the state level who have worked with us to end family homelessness across the state. I also would like to thank my colleagues who during these hearings and working sessions have contributed great ideas and have really worked to form this ordinance that's before you today. So I'm excited to get this passed, and I hope that all of you will vote in the affirmative so we can take the work that's been done to date and formulate a real plan to end family homelessness in the city of Boston. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to get back to the other screen to see if anyone else would like to speak to this. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Councilor Edwards seeks acceptance of this committee report and passage of docket 0225. This is an ordinance, as you've heard, to create a special commission on ending family homelessness. We're going to have a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Docket 0225, Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes, enthusiastically.
Okay, recorded. Councilor Braden.
Yes, also enthusiastically.
We like this. Councilor Campbell.
Yes, very enthusiastically. And congratulations, Councilor Sabi George. This is great.
Thank you. Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Absolutely, proudly, standing with Councilor Sabi George. Yes, 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 yes.
I can only mark you once, though. Councilor Sabi George.
Yes.
Simply put. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. And Councilor Sabi George obviously was yes. Councilor Janey.
Yes,
Councilor
enthusiastic.
Janey.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Mejia.
Claro que sí. Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Wu.
Absolutely, yes.
Councilor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 0225 has received a unanimous vote.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, this is wonderful. Docket 0225 has been passed in a new draft. Madam Clerk, if you could please amend the attendance report to reflect that Who has joined us. This is a great, important day in the City Council. This is where we are voting on all of the work that we've been working so hard on all year. So congratulations certainly to Councilor Asabi George. Next up, we have a couple of dockets from Councilor Edwards. So it's really exciting. Madam Clerk, could we move on to the next docket? It is docket 0851.
Docket 0851, the Committee on Government Operations, to which is referred on July 8th, 2020, document number 0851, in order for an amendment to the Boston City Charter pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 43B, Section 10B, submits a report recommending the order ought to pass in a new draft.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Edwards, who is chair of the Committee on Government Operations. Councilor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I appreciate this moment that we're in and also the time to discuss this. I want to first summarize very quickly the committee report. And as I'm the sponsor of this as well, I would then like to make the argument and summary of the reasons why I believe this body should vote for this charter amendment to go to the people of Boston. Thank you. Yes. And I apologize. I understand it may take time, but I do think.
Just so that everyone's clear, she's going to present the committee report as chair. And that's just the committee report. And then we're going to hear from her as a sponsor as to why this is important, why she introduced it. Okay, go ahead, Councilor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Madam President. For the committee report, docket 0851, amendment to the Boston City Charter pursuant to to General Laws, Chapter 43B, Section 10B, was sponsored by myself and referred to the committee on July 8th. The committee held a hearing on August 6th where public comment was taken and a working session on October 8th of this year. This docket is seeking approval of a charter amendment that would, under the provisions of the section of the local legislative body, section 10B, the local legislative body member may propose a charter amendment through a written request to the city clerk. That is what I've done. This written request to this clerk's office initiates a mandatory timeline, which we are on, by which the council must hold a public hearing. We did. Advise a public hearing in a newspaper. We did, of general circulation, and take final action, which is what I'm asking that we do today. Approval of a referendum on the charter amendment submitted pursuant to this requires a vote of the city council, constitutional review of the attorney general, and hereinafter AGO. And should the AGO approve this question, voters in Boston would vote yes or no at the next regular municipal election, provided such election is at least 60 days later than the time the AGO offers its approval. As such, we are on that timeline, and that is what we are going to vote to do today. At the hearing, the committee reviewed process under section 10B and required amendment timeline and the procedure to have it done by November 2021. The committee discussed making the budget process more equitable and equal in city, having the ability to increase or decrease line items, and participatory budgeting. The committee discussed having an opportunity to review department's process and public accountability. Councilors discussed the limited power that the city council has in crafting the budget. Councilors also discussed implementing participatory budgeting. The committee heard testimony supporting of the participatory budgeting. The Boston Municipal Research Bureau testified in opposition. At the working session, the committee discussed having legislative flexibility. The committee discussed participatory budgeting again and implementing participatory budgeting. And questions were asked specifically about the impact on the fiscal health of the city. We discussed potential concerns, also not only about the capacity and the ability to originate the budget, but also on the predictability and how that could help or hurt the bond rating of the city. We also discussed proposed changes to the amendment that specifically dealt with the Boston Public Schools and making sure that we were consistent with other provisions of the charter. Based on that information gathered at the hearing and working session, the following changes were made. The creation of a participatory fund, budget fund, while we're giving the mayor and city council equal budgetary authority, the ability to originate is no longer part of this draft. The mayor will maintain the ability to originate and set and cap the amount of money to be spent. In addition, the Boston Public Schools, to make it consistent with Section 75 of the charter, we will not have line item abilities to go into the Boston Public Schools budget. The amount of participatory budgeting will be set at 0.5% starting in fiscal year 2024 and increasing to no less than 1% by 2029. And if or when the collector treasurer declares a fiscal emergency, there will not be a allocation of participatory budgeting. There's a stopgap to assure the fiscal health of the city. This authorizes also the city of Boston, this draft, to create an office of participatory budgeting with external oversight, and its staffing and administrative costs will come from the already separated funds for participatory budgeting that year. Again, sticking within the budget, not adding additional funds. This outlines further and simplifies the back and forth between the city council and the mayor, and it gives the city council the ultimate override to override any budgetary reductions or increases by amendment from the mayor in whole or in part as the final say. This docket is amended in its draft form, and after a much back and forth with many of my colleagues, the final version of this is more accountable and equitable. It is easier to implement. And today I ask that the city council, today's ask of the city council is that this version, having gotten feedback from everybody, that this version ought to pass in the amended draft. That is the committee report. In terms of the actual arguments and any other concerns, because I wanted to address those separately as the lead sponsor, if I may, Madam President.
Yes, please.
We have heard a great deal And I want to be clear about the transparency and back and forth with myself, with the mayor, with the mayor's individuals. And so right now, and before this moment, there was a back and forth between myself, the legal department, myself and the mayor, myself and IGR, which is Neil, and so therefore also the mayor, specifically about this, with the hope that we could get to language that we could agree on. I want to be clear to all my colleagues today, this is not the final step for this. So if we pass today, which I hope we will, and I feel we will, the mayor and this body can continue to discuss and can continue to manipulate, mold, and move this toward another place. We are on a deadline, and that is why we're moving it today. The mayor, in his consideration, is not. So we have the opportunity. So I want to be very clear with everybody. Now, I also want to be clear about why this was prompted and why it's important that we step in and lean in to this particular moment. First, what are we doing? Today's vote doesn't change anything in the charter. Today's vote doesn't change next year's budgetary process. Today's vote is saying we're leaning into the people of Boston having more of a say in how their money is spent. That to me is part of our job. And while some people believe and have stated we are representatives and we should definitely represent and we don't want to abdicate our role to anybody, I believe we need to add to the definition of our role. It is not just to represent and be a voice, but when possible, to empower people as well, to invite them to the table, to invite them to be part of this process. I think it speaks to the strength, it speaks to our trust and our belief in our constituents. And ultimately, they may not agree that this is the power that they want. They may not. That is okay. But democracy requires us, I believe, today to say, then make your decision. So that is what this does. That is what we will do today. I believe we will have a final version, or a version, excuse me, because again, we're still talking with the mayor. And what we're voting on is for the citizens of Boston to make the ultimate decision. Now, this does change the charter. And the reason why it has to go to the citizens of Boston is because it's a charter change. There was no way in which we could change the charter, I believe, without presenting it responsibly to the people of Boston. So I want to be clear about that. Now, there have been certain back and forth and concerns about sections of it, and I wanted to go ahead and answer that publicly. The biggest concern I've heard is about the fiscal responsibility. It is a natural concern and one prompted naturally by the moment that we are in. Not only a pending teetering recession, but one likely to deepen. So naturally, people are wondering, why would you mess with the system and why would you touch anything right now when we are in a precarious moment? I'll remind people today, and we're not doing that. We're only voting on whether the people of Boston in 2021 would like that decision. But just to be clear, this budget amendment actually is fiscally responsible. One, the mayor will determine how much money we have to spend, and we cannot add to that amount. That is the compromise. If he's going to originate the budget, we don't get to turn around and add in more money. That is not there. So the mayor will set the actual ceiling for how much money there is to be spent. Number two, instead of today's process where the mayor presents to us and we go back to the mayor and we're talking amongst ourselves and then he presents a budget and then we do a perfunctory vote to just vote it down, we're going to get to work publicly. People will watch us add amendments. They'll hold us accountable for the things that we're asking for. And not only that, but I have to present my amendments to all of you. And you would have to vote on whether those amendments become part of the budget. To me, that is not only transparent, that's accountable. The folks in my district would turn around and say, you are not advocating for me. I don't like that. I don't like that what you're advocating for. And I'm going to ask that you vote it down or vote it up. But that back and forth happens publicly. And it happens, I think, in the most healthy legislative bodies. And I think that's all we're doing is trying to bring that in line with other legislative bodies. Our budget vote won't just be happening at 12 o'clock and be done by 2 or 3. Our budget vote is going to require us to put in a lot of work, going up and down in amendments, talking to each other, and all of this will be public. I'm actually excited about that. Then what we vote on, instead of a perfunctory, just down vote, will go to the mayor. The mayor ultimately will go into it like the governor would, and line item, agree, disagree, and increase, decrease, so on and so forth. And then comes back to us. And for us to undo what the mayor did, it requires 2/3 majority. But it ends. It doesn't come down to a maybe we will, maybe we won't, we'll go to a 1/12. It ends. I think that process, that open, transparent negotiation, is something that the people of Boston deserve. $3 billion on the line deserves more than a yes or no. And because the mayor is setting what that cap is, what we have to spend, provided he doesn't override or she doesn't override or they don't override, being gender equitable since we're having a hearing on that, override the money that we have in the bank, we will stay within those confines. So then the other argument goes to, well, how is participatory budgeting going to work? Isn't that fiscally irresponsible, or is that an abdication of our role? Again, I want to remind people, we sent out a report to everybody that there are 17 cities who already do this. The participatory budgeting has not impacted their bond rating. And if anything, it did impact one, and it went up in Hartford, Connecticut. Participatory budgeting is not new to this city. We do it now. So it's at the mayor's election. And what we're saying is the people's ability to participate in directing where their money goes should be at their election. So this sets up a process that allows for a small percentage of the budget to be allocated to an office to be created. This will not happen until fiscal year 2024. Why? Because this sets up enabling legislation that we will craft with the community to assure that it's fiscally responsible, that it makes deadlines, it's inclusive, that it deals with social justice, but also the areas in which the money can go to or not go to. We are leaning in and listening to what the community wants. So we will craft that, and they've asked for that time. They're not interested in a rushed process. They're interested in a real process that includes them. When that goes through, and only when that goes through and the office is set up, is when we will have our first election, very likely in annual year 2024, maybe 2025 for participatory budgeting. As in, we're setting this up to expand, to grow, and to be as responsible as possible. But never forget, there is a fail-safe, or there is a check on this. If the CFO of the city of Boston says we are in a financial emergency, we will not have participatory budgeting allocation that year. At the end of the day, today's vote again is to make sure that the people of Boston, who we all heard from in this past budget, we all heard from them. And it's very clear to me, and I think to many of my colleagues, they want in. They want in, they want a bigger impact, they want to be able to talk to, they want to be able to hold accountable. And I believe true accountability can't be just limited to whether I say yes or no, but how much I went in and how many amendments I supported and what kinds of amendments I supported and where did I lead when I should have followed and where I followed where I should have led. That's accountability, that's transparency, that's a modern city government. That is a powerful, responsible legislature. That's who we are. So those are the arguments for it. But let me be clear to my colleagues today. You can hold two narratives if you feel it's necessary. You can honestly hold two narratives and say, this is the constitutional process, and I'm going to go with that process and allow for the people of Boston to make their decision. But I don't agree with this budgetary change. You can have two narratives. And I want to emphasize that again. Today's narrative is only about the process that we're in and the final action that we're required to take pursuant to the Constitution. I hope that you will support and vote for that process in empowering the people of Boston. Then it's up to me and advocates and people on the street and grassroots to convince you and the hundreds of thousands of Bostonians to vote for it to actually change the charter. I know I've spoken a great deal to my colleagues individually and today, but I'm very excited about this. And I think it's in direct response to the moment that we're in. I think we should lean in. And I think we open up the table to everyday Bostonians. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Bach. Councilor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And in the spirit of the prior speaker, I just want to say I want to offer some remarks in my capacity as Ways and Means Chair in support of this. And then I would like to introduce a friendly amendment, which the sponsor is aware of and supports, to the floor. But obviously, when I do that, Christine will send it and it will have to be properly before the body. So I won't address it initially. So the first thing that I want to say is that I think that this is an amendment that that really brings two critical issues that have been discussed in the city for decades or even generations about our budgeting process to the fore, and as the sponsor says, brings them to the people of Boston. So one came into sharp relief with our budget process last year, which is the asymmetrical powers of the council in regard to the budget, and the fact that because of the council's power only to reduce the budget, what ends up happening is a highly ritualized process in which most negotiation and adjustment of the budget happens in a kind of informal way, because formally all that we do, as everyone knows, is reject the budget so that an updated version can be introduced by the mayor, and then as we all experience, there's an up or down vote. And I think we all felt the limitations of that. And I think that to Councillor Edwards's point, that we're representatives of people who expect us to represent them in a budget process more robustly than our current tools enable us to do. The second piece is participatory budgeting. It's a question of how to allow our residents of Boston to be more actively and directly involved themselves in how we live together and how we structure our civic life. And I want to say I have, as people know, I was deeply involved in the Community Preservation Act campaign as an advocate, and often talk about that in the context of the need for affordable housing. But I think it's important to know that there is also, what I learned in that campaign is that there's a deep appetite out there for people to feel more directly connected to our government and to feel like it is government for the people, by the people, right? And I think that I think it's important to note that as our country and our city has gotten so much bigger, you end up in a large city like this with absolutely appropriate levels of bureaucracy and complexity to govern a kind of contemporary 21st century city. And those, they can be great for a bunch of levels of efficiency, but they can also make people feel more and more estranged from that sense of governing by the people. And I think that when we do processes like CPA, or we talk here about participatory budgeting, which gives us an opportunity for kind of a broader lens, we're talking about a way to really undergird the legitimacy of what we do here every day, and to make people feel that direct connection. And the fact that, I think there's such a bad concept and narrative out there about our tax dollars, sort of going to them, the government over there. And I think we really need to push back on that and have the sense of, no, like the government is us, we're collectively deciding how we're going to govern together. And taxes are actually part of a really serious, important joint democratic project. So that to me is the philosophical case here. I just want to emphasize that what we're proposing in this amendment here today, what the sponsor's proposing and I'm supporting, is very consistent with lots of things out there. So on the participatory budget side, the proposal that there will be enabling legislation and ordinance, which will have to go through this council, which will go through the mayor, which will be a whole legislative process to figure out like what's reasonable and how it works. That's exactly what we did with the Community Preservation Act, and Councillor Flaherty will remember sort of shepherding that through. And so there's a lot of opportunity to figure out the exact mechanics of everything at that stage and to do it in a robust, responsible and democratic way. And the funding mechanism, also the idea of putting the money in a fund, having an office that manages it that's funded out of that, that's all consistent with the way that the Community Preservation Act is currently set up and working inside of the city. So I just want to sort of emphasize for folks that shouldn't feel strange or alien to something that we're doing right now, and I think doing successfully. And then on the side of the powers of the council, what we're really proposing is for the council to have powers that resemble more a standard legislature's powers when it comes to the budget. Whether you're looking up at Congress or the state legislature, or frankly, you look at bodies of selectmen in other cities around Massachusetts, towns around Massachusetts, the ability to amend a budget, to offer amendments, is an important part of I think the legislative power. And the reality is we're actually not taking one of the standard legislative powers, which is to originate a budget, in recognition of exactly that complexity and bureaucracy that I alluded to, and the fact that we know that the mayor's side has a budget office, has a long interdepartmental set of work around the budget, and that it makes more sense for the council to come in at a scrutiny level, but that scrutiny should be something that can go in both directions, right, of increasing and decreasing line items. And within that context, Councilor Edwards has included in her proposal substantial limitations to make sure that we are securing the fiscal health of the city when it comes to things like the council not being able to increase the overall amount, the fact that there is that ability to press pause on participatory budgeting if we're in a crisis, the slow ramp up of the participatory budgeting in the first place, and a number of other things. So I certainly feel, as the Ways and Means Chair, that this would enable a budget process that would be more genuine in a number of respects and a little bit less of a pantomime from the perspective of the public. And I think that befits us, and that it would be a good power for this council to step into and still allow the mayor a strong leadership role in the budget. And so with all of that said, I would urge colleagues to support this today. I am, as I alluded to at the start, proposing, the one last thing I wanted to say is just to again emphasize Councilor Edwards' point that the question here is about whether we send this matter to the voters, and that there would obviously be a vigorous campaign with, I'm sure, cases made for and against. But to me, there's a strong case for sending it to the voters.
Councilor Bach, before you go on, so I want to make sure that the amendment gets before the body.
I don't have it yet.
Whoever is behind the scenes, I don't know if that's Christine or Michelle.
I think I'm supposed to say the magic words that I am proposing a floor amendment to.
And you have said that, so I wanted to get into the email because you're getting ready to describe what that is.
I don't have it.
Exactly, so that's why I have paused to ask that this amendment be sent. So if we could make sure that everyone who needs to get the amendment gets the amendment. Councilor Bach, please resume and tell us about this amendment and why it's important.
Has it come in?
I've got it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So this is a simple amendment. One thing that I've heard both from folks on the mayor's side and from fiscal folks in the city is just that while the original intent of the legislation in the sponsor's amended committee report was to limit the power of the mayor in responding to, so when the council amended a budget and passed it, the mayor was only going to be able to reduce things and not to increase things. The point that has come to the fore is that sometimes we have situations like this year where the teachers agreed a contract in the midst of the budget process, and so money was added to the budget before the end of the process. And so basically that if the mayor isn't able to do increases, some of those natural adjustments that happened today would be difficult to make. So all that this amendment does, Madam President, is it It simply allows, when the mayor sends back his amendments in response to the council amendments, it allows him to make amendments in both directions. And then still the council would have the ultimate power to override those with a 2/3 vote, or obviously not override them. So that's the only change, is to allow the mayor's amendments to also be increases, not only reductions.
Thank you so much. Anything else, Councilor Bach?
Just that I would seek a second and a vote on that amendment prior to the vote on the, to amend the chair's amended committee report prior to the vote on the committee report.
Yes, we would vote on the amendment before we would vote on the report. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to the chair of the committee and the sponsor of the legislation. Anyone who would like to speak will have the opportunity, but at this time, I'm going to go back to Councilor Edwards. Councilor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just wanted to reiterate that Councilor Bach and I discussed this amendment. I wholeheartedly support it. I discussed it with advocates in the time that we had. It's a simple, very, very simple fix, and adds the options or the tools in the toolbox of the mayor. I support it. It doesn't change anything.
And just so that everyone's clear, the discussion at this point is about the amendment. So if
Madam President, would you like me to read the amendment, please, for the public?
Yes, please read it so that all of us have it, and everyone on this Zoom should have it in your email, but please read it.
I'm just going to do it off my phone, so bear with me. Docket number 0851 shall be further amended in the sentence beginning with, the mayor may modify a budget by striking the words reducing or removing, but not increasing, and striking reduction by and adding the word to after the word amendment, and added an S to the word amendment. The amended sentence will say, the mayor may modify a budget approved by the council by returning it to said council with amendments to any of the line items, I guess, provided that a vote of 2/3 of the council shall be sufficient to override the budgetary amendment in whole or in part, or an overall budgetary veto by the mayor.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. And just again, to remind folks, any discussion at this point is about the amendment. I know that Councilor Braden wanted to jump in. Is it about the amendment or the overall? If it's the overall, we're going to wait. So right now, discussion is only for the amendment.
Madam President, I was putting my hand up to offer a second to this.
So before we do that, we're going to deal with this first amendment, okay? So if you could hold tight. And Councilor Braden, if you have that in writing, I want you to make sure that you have that to Christine.
No, pardon me, Madam Chair, Madam President, not a second amendment, but to second Councillor Bach's
amendment. Thank you, because we do need to have it properly before the body with her offering it in a second. So it is properly before the body. The clerk has read it. Everyone has it in their email. And at this time, it's just discussion on the amendment. If there's no discussion on the amendment, that's fine. We're going to vote on the amendment. So the amendment has been seconded by Councilor Braden. Give us just 1 second. Councilor Sabi George, did you?
Madam President, I would like if Councilor Bach, who's offered this amendment, just to again briefly explain the impact of this amendment on the matter before us.
Thank you. Councilor Bach?
Sure. It's simply that now so the council sends its amended version of the budget to the mayor, and then the mayor has the chance to send it back with amendments. This is sort of the normal volley that happens. For instance, you see it at the state legislature with the governor. So all that it's letting the mayor do is, when he sends it back to us, have made amendments of his own that are both reductions and also increases. And previously, the language in the sponsor's docket only allowed him to make reductions. The problem with that is that sometimes in the intervening time between the introduction of a budget in April and the time we're doing this in June, there will be something material that's changed.
The appointment.
The teacher's contract that got ratified that will require an increase. And so that's why it's important for us to allow that flexibility for the mayor in the response. So that's the thing that it changes. It gives back a greater degree of mayoral freedom in the way that he amends the budget and sends it back to the council. He or she, I should say.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Councillor Asabi-George.
Madam Chair, through you to the maker of the amendment, my understanding of what's before us is that we are still with this amendment and with this change, we would still be negotiating a balanced budget. If there were an opportunity for an addition because of some other factor to the budget when it goes back to the mayor, does that then come back to us and then we have an opportunity to then again add amendments to that additional potential add of money to the budget?
So Councillor Bach and then Councillor Edwards. Councillor Bach?
So the way it would work is that the budget comes back to us amended by the mayor, and then we have the opportunity to approve it or override aspects of that with a 2/3 vote. So basically we can override the mayor's amendments with a 2/3 vote. But it's the same thing in the legislature. The volley doesn't go on forever.
Councillor Edwards, did you want to add to that, or did that satisfy the answer?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we still do not have the ability to add to the budget ourselves. We are still not adding any more to that. The mayor's limits are the mayor's limits, and only he in this is able to add to it, and that's with changing circumstances. We did not want to stop him from being able to adjust to the moment. Federal grant comes in, negotiation happens, he can do that. We cannot.
More discussion on the amendment. Councillor Arroyo, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I just want to kind of understand this. So through you to the maker, after we have either approved some budget, this is later in the process after a budget's been approved, or I guess rejected, that as money comes in through a grant or something else, that's what this is referring to?
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, so.
No. So it's when we take the vote in June, right? So the vote that's traditionally right now a ritual rejection of the budget. Instead, it's a vote on the budget, and it's most likely, because we now have the power to actually amend the budget, a case where the council amends the budget and passes an amended budget and sends it to the mayor. Then in Councillor Edwards's proposed charter amendment, the mayor has 7 days to consider what we've sent. And then he sends something back to us with his amendments. The only thing that this is changing is that what he sends back to us with his amendments, he's able to make adjustments in the line items in both directions. So before it was only allowing a reduction, which could create a situation, right, where you're reducing and not able to increase, and then you've got a budget.
Why they can't send them before?
And then it doesn't allow the flexibility of if our revenue numbers are up by that point in June. So that's the idea of the thing. Does that make sense?
So I guess,
if I may,
go ahead, Councillor Edwards.
if I may.
Yes, Councillor Edwards, you have the floor.
We're talking specifically after we have voted out and done our amendments to the budget. At that point, mayor gets it. The current version says he can only reduce what we've done. That makes no sense. This version, Councillor Bach allows for him to reduce or add what we've done. It ultimately then comes back to us to approve that with 2/3 majority.
Okay, and so if we don't approve it, then our amended version stands.
Exactly.
And just as a question or course of questions, is 2/3 what it already allows, or are we changing it from a simple majority? For instance, a simple majority can pass a budget. If he makes an amendment, sends it back, would this essentially veto that simple majority's amendment? Or in other words, so if we made amendments to the budget, we send it to him, he amends it back, but we only have 7 votes, which is a simple majority to pass, would that allow for his budget to essentially to stay the way that he had presented in the first place?
Correct. If we don't have the 2/3, he would have that. And it's more because we had 2 bites at this apple. We went and amended it already. He goes to it and narrows it down and negotiates with us and gets it to certain points where there might be some contention. Then it comes back to us and we do the 2/3. The goal is to end this, and the goal is to end it with a majority of us. And it also is to make sure that one person can't hold up the entire process.
Okay, I think I get it. Thank you. That was helpful. Thank you, Councilor Edwards.
At this time, the chair recognizes Council Mejia. Council Mejia, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. This is in regards to the amendment. For those who are less educated and less privileged to understand all of this, I want to make sure that the people who are tuning in have a full understanding. And if I may, if I'm hearing this correctly, is that based on my experience with this journey, is that the mayor introduces his budget. We host a series of hearings, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's fighting for things that they want. People knock on our doors asking us and different departments advocating for the things that they want. The mayor then asks us what we think. Then there's these backroom deals that happen. A budget is presented and then we have to vote on it, right? And I feel in my own little.
Absolutely not.
I was
deals.
No, I'm saying there's not backroom deals. I'm just saying like there's things that happen not in public. I'm being honest, at least my experience. Things happen back and forth, and I feel as though the people's voice and what people are fighting for oftentimes gets lost in the conversation, right? And I think if I'm hearing this correctly, this particular amendment will give us an opportunity to have a little bit more say in what the budget needs to reflect before it gets voted on, because I feel as though there was really no
amendment. So the amendment, to be clear, we're talking about the amendment, and the amendment gives the mayor, not the people, the mayor, the ability to increase, not just reduce. So at this time, we're going to continue to discuss the amendment. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? I think your comments are more about the overall legislation.
Well, it's still
we want to hear that as well, but right now we're discussing the amendment.
Yeah, but I think that even the amendment giving him that additional power still feels like there's no room for people's voices, and that's where I'm confused about.
So I don't interpret it that way. I interpret it as giving us all the flexibility we need. Right now, the language says the mayor can only come with reductions. We may find additional money that we want invested somewhere else, housing, education, wherever. We don't want to, through this ordinance, limit the mayor's ability to then make that greater investment. So the amendment that Councilor Bacchus put forth is going to allow that flexibility for reductions or increases. So we want to have those increases. So that's what the amendment does. Any other discussion on the amendment? And did you have any other discussion, Councilor Mejia, on the amendment only, just the amendment? And then we're going to talk about, everyone will have the opportunity to talk about the full ordinance if they want. But right now, we're just talking about the amendment. Any other discussion on the amendment? The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia, you're good, right? Councilor Baker. Councilor Baker, you have the floor. On the amendment only, we're just discussing the amendment.
Thank you. I just think that we're here on 15 different screens talking about amendments to one of the biggest changes to the charter we've seen in over a generation. I honestly, I know the way the vote's gonna go. Everybody's a bobblehead on this. We ain't gonna move forward. That's great, but we gotta be careful about what we're doing here. I think that we're pushing this through and that's all. An amendment to a charter, people don't even understand. I'm looking at everybody's face. They don't understand it. I think this is crazy what we're doing here. Thank you.
And so to be clear, this vote will not change the charter, okay? This vote is not changing the city's charter.
It's working towards changing.
Right, but I want to be just very clear about our process.
This vote is about the charter, Madam Chair.
Councilor Baker, this vote here is about an amendment that would then get put forth before the people of Boston to choose what the people of Boston want to do.
But the interaction that I'm seeing here on my screen, people confused about this. We're trying to put an amendment through. We're all on screens. This should be happening when we're back together in the council chamber. Just one man's opinion.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Any other discussion on Councilor Bach's amendment? Councilor Arroyo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to be clear, we're voting on the amendment, then we're voting on the actual. Okay. And Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Will we be allowed to comment before we vote on the actual?
Absolutely.
Thank you,
People will
appreciate it.
still have the opportunity. Right now, we're just discussing the amendment. People will have all the opportunity to continue to weigh on the ordinance. Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask you to call the roll on the amendment, please. Madam Clerk, I'm sorry, I believe you're muted. Sorry.
Thank you. Unmuted myself 3 times. There we go. Okay, thank you. An amendment on docket number 0851. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Janey.
Yes.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. And Councilor Wu.
Yes.
Councilor Wu, yes. Madam President, the amendment proposed by Councilor Bach on docket number 0851 has received a unanimous vote.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Now we have the matter before us, which is the actual docket. I know Councilor Mejia had some thoughts about that, so I'm going to go back to Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. So I am wholeheartedly I am wholeheartedly, enthusiastically, 100% all about this, what's in front of us here today. I believe it is our restorative justice moment, an opportunity for us to right the wrong and an opportunity for people to really see democracy in practice. And, you know, I started my job here last year. Everyone told me that our greatest power was the budget. And I didn't even realize what that meant until I started going through the process of trying to navigate the budget process. I learned a lot about politics. I learned a lot about all of the trades offs that we needed to make in terms of, you know, if we voted yes, if we voted for no. And, you know, as an at-large city councilor, it was a lot easier for me because I don't have a particular district that I have to deliver for. So I understand and recognize that privilege, but I do know that for me, being put in this place and to represent the people, that I felt at many times powerless. And if this amendment to the charter gives us an opportunity to really represent and create space for the people who are living these realities to really inform our thinking, then this is what we need to do in this moment in time to right the wrong. And so, and I do appreciate your pushback in terms of when I talked about the backroom deals. You know, this is just political speak. I do know that there are a lot of people out in these streets that believe that their best interest is never what is at you know, at the table when decisions are being made, right? And so there's a lot of frustration. And even though I'm an elected official, and even though, you know, or even though a lot of these things, at the end of the day, I'm always and will always be an activist and will always be from these streets, right? And so this is how I present, and this is how I talk, and this is who I am here to fight on behalf of. And I want to bring that sense of energy into the space because that is what I was hired to do, is to bring their voices into these conversations, because far too long we have been ignored. And so I have a responsibility to do just that. And the same way that I voted no on the budget, even though I called it the mayor's budget, it's the people's budget. And this is an opportunity for us to really put the people first. And I am so grateful to my sister, Lydia Edwards, counselor, the Honorable Lydia Edwards. I'm learning all of this formality that y'all are always talking about. Because she gets the system. She understands the law. She talks about things from a structural perspective. And I think that our people are better off because we've learned so much from her, well, at least me and everybody who follows us and tunes in to all of the things that she's hosting. And so this is just another opportunity for people to learn and for people to see what happens when they see themselves reflected in democracy. So I just want to congratulate Councilor Edwards and thank her for her continued advocacy on behalf of those who are less savvy in the political space.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Arroyo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I'd like to thank the maker, Councilor Edwards, for this. I think this is an important step. I've clearly had some experience around the council before I was on the council. I had a father who was on the council. I had a brother who was on the council. And I remember them going through this budget process as it's currently constructed, as I just went through this budget process, and the limitations of what this budget process is, not just for the council and whether or not the council has a say. It's really a limitation about the advocates and the community groups and the communities that we represent who come to us so often with nuanced positions on the budget and where they would like to see increases and where they would like to see decreases, and to have to explain to them that what we're allowed to do is essentially reject or approve a budget and not actually touch upon any of those nuances is incredibly frustrating. I've only had to do it once. And so, I think what we're looking at for right now, for getting this to voters, for allowing the city of Boston to ultimately have a say into whether or not this is taken into effect is great. It's phenomenal. And it's a step in the right direction for the city. So I'd like to thank Councilor Edwards for really taking this on head on and crafting it in the way that she did. And I will say that, in regards to how we're voting on this and whether or not we understand it or not, I feel like I understand it perfectly fine. So thank you, Councilor Edwards, for the breakdown. And I would just mention that we voted on our budget this year through Zoom. And so if it's good enough to approve the budget, I think it's good enough to make sure that we're putting in a charter reform, something that would look towards changing the way that budget that we approved ultimately is put together. And so I look forward to this. I look forward to the debate that will happen over the course of election season as this goes to the voters. And I look forward to voting in support of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilor Arroyo. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden. Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I really also want to commend Councillor Edwards for facilitating a very robust process, which engaged with all of us in the City Council, the administration, members of the public, advocates, to consider this very weighty decision we're taking, like amending the charter. And I think it was a very thorough process. Many people throughout our city feel excluded or have felt excluded from the current budget making process. And I really welcome the concept of participatory, I'm not managing my P's very well today. Participatory budgeting as a positive way to directly and actively engage with residents in order to bring more voices to the table, which when deciding how public resources will be more equitably allocated to fund city services for that our constituents depend on. Having just gone through my first budget process as a new councillor, and thank you, Councillor Bach, for shepherding us through that process and opening it up in a way that we hadn't seen before, where we could engage with the different departments and discuss things. And now we're gearing up for our next budget process in this spring coming, and while we're still in the middle of a COVID epidemic. I believe we must move the city's appropriation process forward by codifying a more equitable process that intentionally empowers the voices of all Bostonians, both directly through their own voices, as well as through their representatives or district councillors. And I will be voting in support of the charter amendment and look forward to engaging with the residents of my district when it is placed before the voters on the ballot next fall. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Campbell. Councilor Campbell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And of course, thank you to Councilor Edwards. And I'm extremely grateful to her for authoring this legislation, for her leadership, of course, and I proudly support it. Every year since I joined the council, I've had things I've been pushing for on behalf of my district, which is predominantly a district of color, where every inequity you can imagine exists and has sadly been under-resourced for far too long. I, along with my residents, have been advocating again and again for more investment, more capital, but have been deeply disappointed at times because of our inability to make meaningful changes. And that is partly because of our limitations as counselors in this budget process and our unwillingness to give some of our power to the people. I've had this frustration with our limited budgetary authority numerous times, and actually was just writing down some of those moments when it was advocating for the creation of the Youth Development Fund. I wanted more money to go into it. When I voted against the VPS budget, I wanted to see more investments with respect to closing the achievement gap and many other investments. I feel it when we're looking to shift resources to our office's work on resiliency and racial equity, our other frontline departments, ISD, DPW, or our departments, of course, that are doing the work with expanding diversity. None of us ran for office just to be glorified advocates. We ran to deliver and to do so in partnership with the executive office. It is hard to do that with these structural impediments. And if residents ultimately decide, and if they ultimately decide to further empower their counselors, their legislative branch of government in the budget process, this will also empower them, and any current or future mayor should support that. We have an opportunity to give residents a seat at the table, to share our power, and most importantly, to not just acknowledge that those living the problems have the solutions, but to invite them in to co-create policy with us. This has been the foundation of our work in District 4, and it has worked out beautifally. I do this work in partnership with my team. We do it in partnership with our resident leaders on the ground, and there are dozens of them that have been a part of this work for decades. And I think this is a way forward for us to put the question to the voters, to the people, and have them decide if this is the way we should proceed. So again, thank you, Councilor Edwards, for your leadership here. And of course, Madam President, I look forward to supporting this.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Sabi George. Councilor Sabi George, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you to the maker and colleagues who have spent some time in the last day or so talking me through some of what the implications are of today's vote. I would say first and foremost, I wish that the participatory budget piece was separated from this, because that is the easy yes. As much as we can engage voters and residents in the participatory budget process, with that designated funding, the more engaged they are. My concerns and challenges with the rest of the charter amendment, and yes, I want the city council to have more power. Yes, I want us to be able to play a much more active role and proactive role in the budgeting process, because we know that's where so much of our work happens. My concern, though, where I'm concerned, though, is how this plays out in practicality. How we will then be debating on the floor, in the chamber, jobs in one department over jobs in another department. And I worry so much about that impact on our city, on our city's resources, for sure. And I go into this today with some real concerns. I am relieved that there is an opportunity, should this pass the voters, and I appreciate that it will be presented to the voters. I appreciate the fact that the mayor has the opportunity to increase, should there be some shifts, but I do worry about our city's finances, especially during this time. And especially what's going to happen over the next 12 and 24 and 36 months as we work to make this potentially a reality. Engaging the voter is important. The participatory budget piece, I think, is invaluable when we think about engaging our residents across the city. I do worry about the reality and the practicality of how this plays out, though, on the financial amendment piece, when we're all working towards and debating and fighting with one another over, although a $3 billion budget, still a small budget, we are still going to be in a place where we are fighting each other over crumbs. And it is all so important. So I struggle with this vote today. And I am really anxious about the dynamic that it will create for this body and the the conflict that is already created by our government structure between our body and the mayor's office, and then the conflict it will now create within our own body. So I continue to contemplate and continue to struggle at this moment with where I will be in this vote, and just want to share that with colleagues because it is such an important piece of the work that we do. And I do want to thank the maker for sure for her diligence and her hard work and her thoughtfulness in pulling this together, because I do think it's an important piece of legislation. I just worry about the impacts that it will have on our body's productivity. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor O'Malley. Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This past June was my 10th budget vote, and it was the most difficult budget vote I've certainly cast, and probably one of the more difficult votes that I cast. But I ultimately cast a yay vote because there was no alternative that I thought would satisfy the myriad needs that we need as a city. And I stand by that vote and will always stand by that vote. Now, one of the reasons why my vote was yes is because I did not have an alternative. And quite frankly, none of us had an alternative. Whether you voted yes or no on the budget, there was no alternative presented. And that's not a criticism of any individual, but it's a criticism of the way the system currently is. I have heard over the last 24 hours from a number of people whom I respect greatly, people I look up to, who've really expressed some incredibly deep concern about our passing this bill. And I've taken it to heart. I've thought this over. I've talked to so many stakeholders in this. But at the end of the day, I will be voting yes in support of this for one very simple reason, and that's I trust the institution of the Boston City Council, a body that I love, a body that I spend quite a bit of time trying to join, and then a body that I've spent the last decade, I think, being a productive member of, a body that I will also be leaving at the end of this term. I trust this body because more than any other legislative body in perhaps the country, we represent this city. And make no mistake, this can be an incredibly maddening body, a divided body at times, a confounding body at times, but also a body that does come together. A body that, while we may not agree on every issue or certainly many issues, I don't doubt for a second the sincerity of each and every one of you and the people who came before us and the people who will come after us and their desire to make this a great, thriving, strong city. And all of us, I know I certainly did. I first ran to join this body as an at-large member in 2003. And one of the issues that I campaigned on was making the body stronger, making it more of a counterweight with the mayor. And I think all of us have said that. And I think all of us believe that. And whether, no matter how you end up voting on this particular charter change today, or if it indeed goes before the voters, I don't doubt that we all feel that. I also think that this charter amendment isn't nearly as impactful or potentially cataclysmic as some would suggest. It actually sets some really defined parameters on how we can be a more active counterweight with the executive, but the bulk of the power, make no mistake, remains in the executive branch. I believe in this body. I believe in this city. As I said, this can be a divided body at times, but at the end of the day, I know that we are resilient, much like the people whom we serve, much like the city that we all love. And empowering this body to play a more active role during these budget deliberations with some key controls in place is the right thing to do and will strengthen this city. So I will be voting yes. I certainly understand the concern that has been raised and I know all of us, and I particularly take great concern in making sure that we are able to maintain our AAA bond rating, to be able to maintain that, particularly in a post-pandemic world, we're able to have the economic engine to continue. But I don't think that this runs at all counter to that. In fact, I think that this will actually strengthen the city's economy for years to come. I appreciate the work by the maker. I appreciate the comments and the thoughtful consideration for all of our colleagues, and we'll be voting yes upon roll call. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor O'Malley. The chair recognizes Councilor Baker. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to read something from the report I got last night. The sample of cities reviewing is relatively small, so the ability to draw conclusions regarding any relationship between participatory budgeting and municipal bond rating is limited. Bond agencies do not take participatory budget into considerations. You can rest assured that if this change is made, the bond rating bureaus will look at Boston, look at what we've done with our finances over the last, it's not 5 or 10 years, it's the last 35 years that it took us to get our standing at a AAA bond rating. I think if we're saying that this isn't going to affect our bond rating, we're being unrealistic with ourselves. We have people talk about being advocates on this council. We have people that, let's talk about, go back to the budget vote. That was purely a political vote. People were looking to defund the police, and in that vote, in that no vote, they were voting to defund public works, defund the parks department, defund EMS, and it's that type of person that we have on this body here now. So to go back to what Matt had to say, I don't have that much faith in this body to be able to not be 13 different fiefdoms and destroy the city budget. I'm very, very concerned going into this, and I think that I would like to through the chair ask Councilor Edwards, what is our time frame we're on? Because you had talked about all the great conversations that happened. I got a packet dropped off of me last night, so I wasn't involved in those conversations because I'm probably the only no vote here today. So that concerns me. We have a working session with heavy on advocates, heavy on socialists. We have just the Municipal Research Bureau. We haven't even asked our own finance committee where they are on this. So I think, yeah, that this is a bit of a rush trying to get it done by the end of the day. I would love to be in the chambers debating this, but obviously we can't. So those are some thoughts. I will be a no on this. I think this will be detrimental to our bond rating. And anybody that, I think you're not being realistically saying that, because they're going to look at the city of Boston holistically. They're going to say, what they want to change the entire structure and something that's been working. Now, if we go back to the 50s and 60s and 70s, we didn't have any good budgets. We didn't have any good budgets. And it took a lot to get to a point to get our financial house in the city of Boston in order. And the only way that we are able to take care of these neighborhoods and different organizations that are happening is because we pay our bills. If we start screwing around with that, our bond rating will go down based on that. Just that, not on that the Finance Commission hasn't weighed in on this, not at the Pioneer Institute hasn't weighed in on this, because in my opinion, our bond rating will go down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor Baker. Before I have Councilor Edwards address your question on the timeline, I'm going to call upon Councilor Wu, and that will conclude our discussion on the matter. So we'll hear from Councilor Wu, and then we're going to go to Councilor Edwards. Councilor Wu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to weigh in and thank very much the sponsor and author of this and all of the advocates and activists who have been working for a very long time to make sure that we are clear about what this proposes and the impacts that it will have on every sense of our budget and democracy in the city. What I most appreciate about this proposal is that it sets forth to shatter the false choice that we always have been presented: fiscal responsibility or civic engagement, right? Financial stability or democratic participation. The truth is that we need both. We must have both to be the best city that we can be, to be in the strongest place that we can be. If you look at the state of Boston's economy right now, by certain metrics that the bond rating agencies might look at, things seem strong. And then you dig just a little bit below the surface and you see just how big the gaps are, that in fact, we are slowly eroding away our economic potential through inequality, through the racial wealth gap, through disconnection and disempowerment of our residents. So the only way to build back to the economy that we deserve, that we could have, that truly includes everyone, is to truly include everyone in making those decisions. So I just want to note a couple. So first, I just want to say I'm fully in support of not just moving this to the ballot and putting it before the people, but then also urging it at that stage to pass, and will be a loud voice in support of passage on the ballot as well. And then finally, I just want us to be honest as a city council that much of this we can already do, right? That not we, but much of this the charter already allows to happen, right? We could have a much fuller participatory budgeting system. We could have a much more transparent and engaging budget process with the mayor choosing to open it up to more open conversations with the council through year-long conversations and visioning sessions with the public. We do not do that today because we are used to a system of one-sided mayoral control. There's much more that can happen, but this charter amendment is necessary to codify it so it's not just dependent on who is in office and whether he or she wants to make those changes and open it up out of choice. This sets the floor so that we will always know, guaranteed, that the people will have a say and that people will be truly included in the process. And again, that is the only way for Boston to reach our economic potential. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councillor Wu. I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Edwards briefly, and then we're going to move forward with our vote. Councillor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I wanted to address some of the questions and concerns. And I do appreciate every single one of my colleagues and the struggle to get here and the fact that they are still weighing this. I wanted to first discuss the debate about jobs on the floor. And as Councillor Sabi George said, that is something that weighs heavily on her heart and mind, as it does for all of us. I don't think any one of us didn't hear about jobs during this past budget. That being said, Councillor, I wanted to remind us that without having it on the floor, it happens 100% and totally in the hands of the mayor, without any impact from us. And as Councillor Baker has alluded to several times, when a mayor decides that your department is no longer necessary, with one chop, you are no longer allowed to exist. And that's a hurtful, horrible thing to happen to people. And this allows for the council to respond to that and say, actually, no, we don't agree with that budget amendment or with that elimination of those jobs. So I just want to remind each other, it's about the back and forth, but ultimately it must end. And so, yes, the mayor ultimately may get everything he wants, and that is a possibility of this process. But that it's open, honest, and transparent and accountable to the people of Boston, that I think we should lean into. Again, in terms of there was a question about productivity and the ability to get things done if we're not wrangling back and forth over a budget. I can tell you what's not productive, a back and forth over a 1/12 budget, which is what our system currently allows for if we do not vote for the budget to go forward. So again, emphasizing the current system as it stands right now is not good enough. It is not good enough to the people of Boston, not just us. It is not good enough for them. They have every single right to watch us, to see us, fight for them, and to hold us accountable when we don't. And this process opens that up for them to see us go to the mat, honestly and completely. You will see what I'm going to fight for District 1. Watch me. You're going to see how District 7 comes out. You're going to see how District 2 comes out. You're going to see all that happening and how we support each other in that moment. That's what this does. I wanted to also address Councillor Baker's, and I really appreciate Councillor Baker. He did come to the working session, and my dear friend, and honestly, at this particular moment, Councillor Baker, I appreciate your directness and honestness and your frankness on so many levels, professionally and personally. There's nothing but love for you. Okay. So in terms of your concerns, though, in the report, I agree, it does say it's limited. But in the report, it also notes that where there was an impact on a bond rating, it was Hartford, Connecticut, and their bond rating went up. I agree, Councillor Baker, that the research is limited on this particular issue. But you know what is not? Our timing on the ability to come up with a participatory budgeting process that accounts for those concerns. This amendment literally says, back to you, City Councilor, you better come up with the process, enable this process. And we, like we did in this amendment, literally have the CFO could cancel participatory budgeting that year if there's a fiscal emergency. That's right now. we could also come up with other safeguards to work with the mayor's office to make sure that we do not get ahead of our skis on this. I do want you to understand, I am trying to address that. I understand it may not ultimately convince you, but you have been heard, and I'm trying to address those things. I also wanted to, in terms of the timeline, we have 4 months from when I introduced it to get it out, to make a final action. We're within those 4 months, and that is why also with this little bit of buffer zone time, I believe the mayor's office, the CFO, and I can talk about what language they do or don't want and possibly get to a better conclusion. But for this body, we have 2 deadlines. Our fiscal year, as you know, everything must be done this year that we introduced. And then we also have the overall charter one. It doesn't necessarily allow me, this body, to override our own annual deadline at the same time. So in as much as there's a longer deadline, it goes into the next year, but we don't have a longer deadline. We finish our stuff in 1 year.
So can we ask the FinCom where they are and vote on this next week?
Could we? Sure.
Well, I'm asking, could we?
Oh,
As you know, hate to say favor, because that's probably a word we can't say anymore. But, you know, as a favor, can we ask what Matt Cahill and the FinCom, they deal with our budget every year and nobody asks them their opinion on it?
well, we had public hearings and we had public working session. And so if they choose not to come and choose not to provide an opinion,
Were they invited?
They were not directly invited, but it was a public hearing.
They should be on a board. They should be invited. And that's my issue. The working session was heavy socialist. There was Pam there. Yes, I am using the word socialist. Yep. Pam was there from the Research Bureau. That was it. We had 15 people speaking in favor and one person towards the end saying, you know, we should be concerned about this. That's not balanced. That's not transparent. And everybody talks about balance and transparency, and we're not. I don't think that this is being transparent. FinCom, they deal with our budget every single year. They know it inside and out, not even asked to be on a panel. So that's so I would ask, can we get their opinion? Matt Cahill, what does you and your group, FinCom, that's been dealing with our budget for probably 30 years, can't think of who you are, Maureen. The
clerk.
What's your role?
City clerk. City clerk.
Sorry, I'm a little hopped up.
I'm just a has-been.
So I mean, how long has FinCom been in overseeing our budgets? And I think what Councilor Sabi had to say, we should really be looking. 13 fiefdoms fighting here now.
So if I may just quickly respond, and then I want to be very clear. All of the opinions from the fiscal, both sides, socialist, capitalist, libertarian, whatever their opinions are, those opinions are allowed to stay and maintain, and they can absolutely oppose this when it goes forward. The FinCom and the financial decisions of those individuals do not impact I believe, our decision today, which is, does this move forward in the process or not? That is all that is before us. And so they will make a wonderful, let me just finish, Councilor Baker. Yep. They can absolutely make the argument, you are following the Constitution of Massachusetts, you have followed that process, it is going forward to us, and make the biggest campaign about why this makes no financial concern, why they shouldn't be a part of this. I would not go to FinCom or the Municipal Research Bureau for their help in drafting a charter amendment for my colleagues to consider. Because the question before my colleagues is whether the people of Boston should vote on this or not. Those who are opposed to this, then they will be opposed to this. That's okay.
I really disagree with
you. So at this time, I think we've had a lot of discussion. I think answers have been provided, and it's time that this council, this body, take action on this docket. This is one step in a long process, where there'll be lots of other steps for lots of other engagement. And I encourage all of it. I want everyone at the table to voice their opinion, to shape it. If they want to lobby campaigns for it and make sure it passes the ballot question, if they want to lobby campaigns against it so they can defeat it, this is one step in that process. I want to thank all of my colleagues for a very thoughtful discussion. This is a big potential change, but this does not change the charter. It just gets one step in the process to put it before the voters. I think it's very powerful. I think it's a game changer. I think it's important that we allow for more voices at the table. Lots of you had mentioned the table, the table, the table. I'm a big believer in who is at the table not only determines what is served, but who gets fed, who gets to eat. And so we do need to set a table that includes not just us, the 13 of us, but the people. So I am very excited to ask our clerk, our city clerk, Madam Clerk, to call the roll. This is one step in the process. There are lots of other steps. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? We are discussing docket 0851. 0851.
Thank you, Madam President.
Madam
Docket 0851 as amended.
Yes,
As
as
amended.
amended.
Okay. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
No.
Councilor Baker, no. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor, excuse me, Councilor Edwards.
Absolutely, yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
No.
Councilor Flaherty, no. Councilor Flynn.
No.
Councilor Flynn, no. Councilor Janey.
Yes.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Wu.
Yes.
Councilor Wu, yes. Madam President, the docket number 0851 as amended received 10 votes in favor and 3 votes in opposition, and it has passed.
Thank you so much. And because this was regarding our charter, it needed at least 9 votes. It has 10 votes, a supermajority. So that has passed in a new draft. We will now move on to docket 0232. Madam Clerk?
Docket 0232, the Committee on Government Operations, to which is referred on January 15th, 2020, docket number 0232, in order for a hearing regarding a text amendment for the Boston zoning code relative to affirmatively furthering fair housing, submits a report recommending the order ought to pass in a new draft.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. The chair recognizes Councilor Edwards, who is chair on the Committee of Government Operations. Councilor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And now, after a spirited debate, I think it's a celebratory moment, actually, for all of us on the council. I think I want to first of all thank the advocates of the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Task Force. And I want to thank Councilor Bach as well, a dear sister and friend who has dedicated much of her prior life to this. And so when she came on, I think it was the jet fuel that we needed to get this done. So I want to thank you, Councilor Bach, personally. I'm going to quickly summarize what we're getting done today and what the mayor has committed to absolutely support. And then I look forward to, I think we're going to go get, well, I'm not going to say we're going to get, we'll celebrate another time. Anyway, sorry. So back to the amendment before us. This is an amendment to our zoning code. And what we have noticed I introduced this initially in 2018 and then reintroduced this in 2019, excuse me, and then reintroduced this in January 2020. We had working sessions on this on February 27th, April 22nd, June 19th, July 14th, and October 8th of this year. What that means is that we knew the historical significance of what we were doing. We knew that this was going to change right away how we build Boston, how we see Boston. And what this does is say that when it comes to zoning, we are going to have an equitable analysis. What it says is we need to acknowledge the past and what the city and planners have and have not done to harm our communities. They have a role to play. Developers have a role to play. And for far too long, we've accepted that their role was really to just build and then hopefully trickle down equity to folks if they can afford to be in the building or not. And instead, we're taking that moment and saying the equity happens in the planning, because that's when the intentionality happens, in the planning. Who do you see living here? How do you see the overall growth of this community? Whose health is going to be impacted by the decisions that you make? Who's going to have access to jobs? All of those questions are part of what we now call the amendment to affirmatively further fair housing. This amendment requires that we take meaningful actions to remove obstacles to opportunities. Not only did we adopt this amendment and further it in the local level, we did so in direct response to President Trump's declaration that he finds that this amendment and this process is horrible, hurts the suburbs, hurts poverty values, and in the worst dog whistle, dog bark that covered up racism, the city of Boston responded, not here. Matter of fact, we're going to learn and we're going to do better here. Now, we have not always had this as our guide point in zoning because, well, you can look at the Seaport. Taking the understanding that you can build it and then they'll come resulted in many of us not being welcome, not being able to afford, and not actually seeing a neighborhood in the end. So not only did we decide that we're going to take a standard to affirmatively further fair housing in planning, but we're going to have a goal of affirmatively integrated communities. And I'm so proud of that definition. And I'm so proud that that is part of our process. So today we're voting on the actual amendment language. I'm proud, and if it's okay with Madam Chair, I'll likely turn over to Councilor Brock to explain some of the wonderful back and forth we've had on the implementation documents. Because it wasn't enough for us to simply say, here's some flowery language, have fun. We really want to invite developers into the fold. And you do that by telling them what the standards are and how they can get there. We have assessment tools. We ask them a series of questions. What did you buy? Who lived there? How much rents are there? What do you intend to put in? Who do you expect to be able to afford to be there? What are you doing for IDP? What are you doing beyond that? We also give them reports. You, developer A, B, C, have bought in a community that is a historically exclusive area. You, developer A, B, C, D, have bought in an area that is displacement from. Because we're not going to let them escape and say, I only bought in 2020, so why do I have to worry about the issues that started in the 1980s or 70s? When you buy it all, the past, the present, and the future. Because your buildings are permanent. So with all of that, we hold a mirror up, we ask them real questions, and then we give them a whole list of ways in which they can help to heal a community. This has been vetted by NIOP, which is a developer organization. And when they came back with their suggestions, it was really about the timelines and some other mechanical components. But overall, an agreement with the goal. I'm proud to say that we got the Tom O'Brien from HYM to agree to these goals and these standards before they were even finished for Suffolk Downs. It's the analysis and the intentionality that we have to agree to. So when people who are in the business of making money by making buildings are agreeing to these standards or saying they can meet them, that's a good thing. That's a win for all of us. Again, I want to thank the task force and so many people that have been part of this before. I want to thank Dr. James Jennings, Bob Terrell especially, for their leadership, their steadfast leadership, and their hearts being on a string and being disappointed many times before I was on the council, by other elected officials or by other systems, but they stayed true to equity. So if it's okay again, Madam President, I'd like to turn it over to Councilor Bach, who was part of this, again, brought the jet fuel in 2020. Thank you so much.
Thank you. At this time, the chair recognizes Councilor Bach. Councilor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councilor Edwards. I can't quite figure out how to fix the metaphor, but I don't know. I think there was a heck of a lot of jet fuel behind this from you and your office before I arrived on the council. And it has been incredibly fulfilling to me, having been at the BHA when the Housing Authority started its affirmatively furthering fair housing process and was then thwarted in that by HUD at the federal level to get to come here in the council and see what we can do in partnership with the mayor and the administration to affirmatively take this, take this duty and responsibility, moral and legal, upon ourselves as a city to affirmatively further fair housing, which really means reversing decades of discrimination, and specifically the way in which zoning has been used as a tool for racial discrimination since its invention in this country a century ago. And that's why I think it's so poignant and so important that we're putting this codification of our commitment to this in the zoning code. I think that's a really important reversal of the tide. And speaking of 2017 and when I was at the Housing Authority, we had an amazing general counsel, Wilbur Commodore. He's one of those bureaucrats who you won't have heard of. He's not a political figure, trailblazing Black lawyer, though, who had come up through the Housing Authority for 34 years. And he was in charge of running this process for the BHA. And I was in a room when he looked up and said, for this to be really serious, the city would need to make some kind of commitment in zoning. Immediately the question was, could we as the BHA even propose that? Because technically it's not the BHA's side of the house. And I saw Wilbur kind of write that idea down in kernel. And then it has in so many ways and through the work of so many people come to fruition in this proposal for a vote today. And I just think it's really important because we talk a lot about the many small decisions and independent actors who have taken actions that over time have added up to institutional racism in this country, the forces that have caused segregation, right? And we live in a very segregated city today. I think it's important to also call out just all of the many people who make those little gestures moment to moment towards a better city and a better country. And I think this is a case of a lot of those snowballing. I'm really grateful for the partnership of the administration in this. Councilor Edwards referenced the fact that in addition to the language we're voting on today, there are implementation docs that will come before the BPDA board. And implementation is so important. Something that's in the law is great and critical, but it's a dead letter if it's not implemented on the ground. And to be implemented, it needs to have a clear process, and it needs to be predictable and understandable so that every developer who comes into the city of Boston to do a project knows what they're facing. And we've, in so many times before, talked about the need to have our zoning procedures made more straightforward so that people know what they're getting into in all cases. And there's no opportunity for kind of arbitrage. And I think what's great about this is that instead of just kind of saying, oh, this is something we want you to consider in this neighborhood because you happen to be surrounded by abutters who care about affordable housing, or you happen to be adjacent to a group that cares about displacement. What this is asking is, in the same way that our city has a desperate need right now to contain carbon, to tackle climate change, and we ask everybody who's building in the city of Boston to look at our green building standards, to meet with the committee, to make proposals about how they're going to contribute to that collective need for us to bring carbon emissions down. In the same way, it says, the city of Boston has a collective duty to affirmatively further fair housing. And we want a more integrated city, a more just city. And we're asking every project to contribute to that and be part of how we build that more just city together. And I think that is at the heart of what zoning, when it describes sort of the public welfare, is meant to do. And it's a novel way of thinking, maybe in the same way that when people first suggested doing green building standards, people said, oh, no, that doesn't belong in zoning. And now we take it for granted because it's so central to the public welfare. And I think I've been really gratified by just the enormous amount of work that a lot of folks whose names won't be mentioned here today, and BPDA, in the BPDA research team, at D&D, at Fair Housing, in the mayor's office, over at BHA. There's been a lot of people who have put a lot of good faith work into how we can not just say, okay, here's the context you're stepping into when you develop, but hey, here's some helpful tools that you could use to be part of being the solution to this problem. And ask all of us to take that upon ourselves. So in the category of names to mention, I do want to mention my policy director, Emily Brown, who's put an enormous amount of work into this. And I want to say finally that I'm especially excited as the District 8 City Councilor that it's really a moment codified in this language is not just looking at preventing displacement from our communities of color, but also opening up the parts of our city that have been historically exclusive and making sure that people of protected classes are able to find opportunities to live in them. And as somebody who represents a lot of neighborhoods that do have a history of historic exclusion, that's just a really important thing to me. So I'm so grateful to Councilor Edwards. I'm so grateful to the mayor. I think this has been something that's really been pursued in a spirit of collaboration. And that's essential because it's going to be a model for the country, not just because of the language we're voting on today, but because of the implementation procedures which have been embraced by his departments, which will make it live and breathe in the life of our city. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. Not seeing any other discussion, let me just say how thrilled I am. My first year, I served as Vice Chair of Housing. If you recall, Councilor Edwards, we held a hearing on gentrification in Roxbury, the gentrification of Roxbury in Roxbury at the bowling building. 350 people turned out for that hearing. This issue is huge. Housing costs in Roxbury went up 70% in a 5-year period. And this is not, what I love about it is the anti-displacement language, but it's the intentionality, because whenever we do anything without intention for equity, what we do is we are saying we want the status quo. And we know what the status quo gets us. It gets us the seaport. So I love that you've done this. I think this historic council passing historic legislation is a great thing. So thank all involved. I remember where we are when you first introduced it, and now to here we are now, very different. So many thanks to everyone that have already been mentioned, certainly to my colleagues and to Councilor Edwards. So at this time, Councilor Edwards seeks acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 0232 in a new draft. This will amend the zoning code in Boston relative to affirmatively furthering fair housing. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Docket 0232. Councilor Arroyo.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Janey.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Claro que sí. Yes, all day, every day.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Wu.
Absolutely, yes.
Councilor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 0232 received a unanimous vote to pass in a new draft.
Excellent. Yay. Yes, let's take a moment to celebrate that. Great. We will now move on to matters recently heard for possible action, starting with docket 0684.
Docket 0684, ordinance on surveillance, oversight, and information sharing.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Edwards, who is chair of the Committee on Government Operations. Councilor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Councilor President Janey. We had a robust hearing and ultimately had a robust recent working session on this proposed ordinance. At this point, we are still keeping it in committee per the suggestions of the co-sponsors. I will say we were very happy to have the administration come to the working session, which ended up being more of a hearing where we heard a lot of their concerns. I do want to thank John Towell, Sam DePina, Neva Coakley-Grice, Mark Lacine, Chris Osgood, David Eagles, and David Leonard and Nayeli Rodriguez for coming to really break down the concerns of the administration. A special thanks, I think, to Chris Osgood and Nayeli for really literally pointing down to the sections of the concerns that they have. And we did receive, and I want to thank the ACLU, Emiliano and Cade for their really breakdown and also section suggestions. I think they came with almost 15 different amendments. So what that means is we have a robust conversation ahead of us. But if it's okay with you, with the Madam President, I would like to keep this in committee. But before we conclude remarks, I think the co-sponsors, I'd like to turn over to the co-sponsors of this proposed legislation.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Checking for my colleagues. I'm one of the co-sponsors here, checking to see if Councilor Wu and Councilor Arroyo would like to chime in. Some sort of hand or no? You good? Yes. The chair recognizes Councilor Wu.
Just to say thank you to my colleagues and the chair especially. I know this has been such a tight, packed end of the year, and I think it was a huge step forward and a big. We made a lot of progress in having it, so that this will pave the way for smooth progress in early 2021. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilor Wu. Councilor Arroyo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd just like to echo Councilor Wu in thanking not just the Chair of Government Ops, Councilor Edwards, for having a hearing that I thought was incredibly productive, but also for our advocates who have really pushed hard on this, and I look forward to moving on this in the next year. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just add, as a sponsor of this docket as well, that I am encouraged by the conversation that it took a long time to have the conversation, but we did have the administration with us for the working session that ended up being a hearing. And I'm encouraged that now that the conversation is happening, that we're moving in the right direction. Obviously, we plan to refile this in the coming year. But at this time, docket 0684 will remain in the committee, and we will move on to docket 1005.
Docket 1005, order for hearing regarding a Boston Centennial Commission to mark the 250th anniversary of 1776 to the inclusive historic preservation and commemoration.
Thank you so much. At this time, the chair recognizes Councilor Baker, who is chair of the Committee on Arts, Culture, Tourism, and Special Events. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd first like to thank Councilor Bach for coming up with this. I think she's the only person that can say the name correctly. Sentinel is a 250-year anniversary of the Revolution. We had a very packed hearing, and also I want to thank Councilor Block for finishing up the last part of the hearing. I had to leave. I think we tried to do a little much. So we talked about the board, Rev 2.0, I think is what it is, that will kind of be the main group that's planning initiatives during this time. We spoke a lot about trying to get more into the neighborhoods, more talking about the stories of different neighborhoods and different people, trying to be more inclusive as we move forward. And then there was also a piece where we were talking about some landmark issues that are having in the discussion became very much about preservation and how do we strengthen those tools. And I would just make a light suggestion to the main sponsor that maybe we bifurcate those two, we separate those out, and we talk about Rev 2.0, and we talk about what we want to do in the land with the Landmarks Commission, and maybe see how we can move those along that way. But I thought it was a good hearing. It all in all, it was I don't know if I'd call it a feel-good hearing, but whenever you're talking about people getting together and celebrating cultures, whatever the cultures are, it's a good discussion. And as far as a landmark stuff, that was a little bit wonky there, but I think that if we if we take it out of there and we move that down, maybe talking with Councilor Bach, maybe we file a separate order for hearing on that and dig into it a little deeper, but I'll leave that up to her discretion. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Councilor Bach, who was the main sponsor, and keep it in committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Councilor Baker. The chair recognizes Councilor Bach. Councilor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And yes, we had a great but very packed hearing. I apologize for my colleagues about the fact that it ran over. And I think what motivated those two aspects of the hearing was really thinking about, as we look ahead to, the birthday of America, the 250th, 1776, how do you kind of expand out from that moment so that you don't end up in a narrow revolutionary space, and instead you're talking about a history that goes across all our neighborhoods, that's transtemporal, that talks about the echoes of the struggle for liberty in every era of Boston's history, and also that prepares the kind of historical preservation and cultivation tools that we need to really preserve and celebrate the history of all our neighborhoods and all our communities as we go not only through 2026, but actually to 2030 and the 400th birthday of the city. And so, you know, this was 50 years ago, this was a moment for historic preservation tools as well. It was the creation of the Landmarks Commission. And so I think there's that opportunity again, and we heard that quite clearly in the hearing, that there's some real work that's needed with our Landmarks Commission, with the ability to have kind of community conservation districts for when it comes to Article 85 and the way that we handle that in zoning. There's a bunch of work to do. However, to the committee chair's point, I think that in the new year, we will definitely be separating some of those things out and digging in on some of the separate fronts. But what I really appreciated was the administration showing up with so much expertise from the city archives, the library, we had the obviously Landmarks itself, the environment department, which houses the sort of historic preservation work of the city, and then tourism and special events, and thinking about the whole economic development aspect of this and how to really support an industry, both the hospitality and tourism industry, and also the world of our historic treasures that has been really financially hit by this COVID crisis. So I really appreciated all the counselors who came, the members of the public who spoke, the many topics we dug into, and I look forward to filing further legislation on this in the new year. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. Docket 1005 will remain in the Committee of Arts, Culture, Tourism, and Special Events. Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask you to read dockets 1075 and 1076 together, please.
Thank you. Docket 1075, order for hearing regarding a review of curriculum standards and resources in the Boston Public Schools. And docket number 1076, order for hearing regarding the implementation of an ethnic studies curriculum in the Boston Public Schools.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Sabi George, who is chair of our Committee on Education. Councilor Sabi George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. On Monday evening, I held an Education Committee hearing to review the BPS curriculum standards and the creation of an ethnic studies program. We heard from several members of the Boston Public Schools Administration, including Andrea Zayas, BPS Chief Academic Officer, Jill Carter, Assistant Superintendent of BPS Office of Health and Wellness, Christine Landry, BPS Assistant Superintendent of Academics and Professional Learning, Ethan D'Albont Burns, Superintendent of Special Education, Dr. Sylvia Romero Johnson, Assistant Superintendent in the Boston Public Schools Office of English Learners, and Shakira Walker Ford, BPS Director of Teacher Development. We were also joined by Johnny McGinnis, Political Director for the Boston Teachers Union, Katie Lee, BPS teacher and member of the Ethnic Studies Now BTU Committee, and Shanae Polino, BPS teacher and member of the Ethnic Studies Now BTU Committee. I'd like to thank Council President Janey for co-sponsoring the Ethnic Studies docket with me and for her thoughtful questions during the hearing. I'd also like to thank Councils Braden, Flynn, Bach, Arroyo, Mejia, and Wu for participating. As I said during the hearing, I filed these dockets to give us an opportunity to talk openly about what's working with our curriculum district-wide and what we could be doing better. We all want a high-quality education for every student. Such an education would give them a strong foundation in their early education years, especially. This will ensure a robust and well-rounded education throughout their schooling, K-12, and provide opportunities to develop their life skills, including, but especially, their ability to understand who they are as individuals, as members of communities, and what it means to live in this complex and diverse world. It's also really important that our students understand each other's stories. Monday's discussion was only the beginning. I'm certain that we will continue this work as part of our budget process and throughout the rest of next year, as our schools remain a really important piece of what we do as a city and the work that happens in them, especially as it pertains to the curriculum and how it's designed and how it's rolled out and how it's offered across the district is critically important to our students' academic achievement as well as well-being. Thank you, Madam President. You're muted, Madam President, you're muted.
Thank you. Dockets 1075 and 1076 will remain in the Committee of Education. We will move on to dockets 1000 and 1033. Madam Clerk, if you could read those together.
Certainly. Docket 1000, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $280,070 in the form of a grant for the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness, known as MVP, Program Action Grant, awarded by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, to be administered by the Environment Department. The grant will fund a 2-year heat resilience planning study for the City of Boston. And docket number 1033, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to participate in the Massachusetts Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, known as the PACE Massachusetts. This order authorized the city to enter into a municipal assessment and assignment agreement with the Mass Development, thereby allowing building owners in Boston to participate in this statewide financing program.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor O'Malley. Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Yesterday, we held the docket on 2 hearings, docket 1000 as well as docket 1033. In all my time on this body, I've never had a docket 1000, so that was great to see. And it was even better to see what an important grant it is for. I'm going to talk about that. 1000 first, followed by 1033, and then we'll vote separately. Obviously support both, and I'm very grateful to colleagues, Councilors Braden, Bach, Asaibi George, Flaherty, and Flynn for their participation in these really important hearings. Docket number 1000 is an order authorizing the city to accept and expend the amount of $280,070 in the form of a grant for the MVP program, which is Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. And the grant will fund a 2-year heat resilience planning study for the city. Now, when I often talk about climate, I try not to talk about it in some esoteric way, but some real world examples. And it is readily understandable as we look at heat and heat waves. When I was my daughter's age, there was an average of 5 days of the year that had a 90-degree plus day. So about you typically growing up in Boston, and some of my colleagues will shake their heads. Heat wave was somewhat rare. There'd usually be 1 or 2 heat waves of the summer. So again, there'd be 5 90+ degree days in 1980. In 2020, this year, we had, I think, 14 or 15 90-degree days. If we do nothing, by the time my daughter is my age, we could have 50 to 60 90-degree days per summer. Think about that. Every single day of the summer could be part of a heat wave or close to it. What we consider Boston's climate would be much more in line with what Washington, D.C.'s climate is currently, which is a lot, more south, 500 miles southern. So this is it's a relatively modest grant, but it's an important grant to look at strategies that we can implement to both make Boston a cooler city, literally and figuratively. And this could be planting more trees has to be part of it. This could be looking at different colored roofs. This could be looking at getting used to white asphalt as opposed to black asphalt, which would reflect heat in a better way. So these are just looking at some strategies that we can implement at the neighborhood level. Not only trees, although that's a crucial part of it, but also looking at other porous surfaces that would help with heat retention, as we've seen in specifically, I believe, in East Boston, Charlestown, Councilor Edwards' district. We've seen some of that. So I'm hoping that we can pass and accept this grant. It'll go into effect. There's already a terrific addition to Chris Cook's team that's going to help oversee this and work with all of us. I did ask at the hearing if we could have maybe an informal check-in in a couple months in the new year when we have some better strategies in place, because I have no doubt that all of us, particularly we district councilors, would have some good ideas on ways to address heat deserts and other aspects. And then secondly, docket 1033 is would authorize the city to participate in the Mass Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, or PACE Massachusetts. We certainly love acronyms in the environmentalist world. PACE is developed by Mass Development, and it enables low-cost, long-term funding for energy improvements in existing commercial, industrial, and multifamily buildings with 5 or more units. PACE loans are repaid via a voluntary better assessment placed on property tax bills. So this is a little bit different than what we've seen in years past, but this basically allows for access to capital through the banks partnering with the cities, which is why we are voting on it today. Minimum amount financeable is about $250,000 or is $250,000, and maximum amount is the projected energy savings. So we need to first take action on this to allow some of our larger scale large scale residential, 5 units or more, commercial, industrial as well, to begin the retrofitting, to begin making some needed energy improvements. As we've seen, both of these dovetail nicely in the efforts that we care very strongly about and are absolutely needed for a coastal city like Boston to take action, as we've already seen some detrimental impacts of climate. So I'm asking for voting favorably on both of these dockets. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you so much. We're going to take these dockets separately. So Councilor O'Malley seeks, who is chair of our Committee on Environment, Resiliency, and Parks, seeks passage of docket 1000. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Docket 1000, Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Janey.
Yes.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Oh, wait.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, y'all gonna have to stop with that. Every time I know I only won by one vote, but I still am here.
Do you know what the problem is? My pad, when I'm holding it, I'm sorry. Oh my God, second time.
Everyone's
I'm out.
I see y'all.
You have Councilor
Mejia.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. And Councilor Wu.
Yes.
Councilor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1000 has received a unanimous vote.
Thank you so much. Docket 1000 is passed. We'll move on to docket 1033.
Thank you. Docket 1033, Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn. Councilor Flynn. Councilor Janey.
Yes.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Wu.
Yes.
Councilor Wu, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Councilor Flynn, yes. Madam President, docket number 1033 has received a unanimous vote.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Docket 1033 has passed. Could you please read docket 0894?
Certainly. Docket 0894, order for hearing regarding increasing public housing in the city of Boston.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilor Edwards, who is chair of our Committee on Housing and Community Development. Councilor Edwards, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. This matter was originally sponsored by Councilor Bach. We had, I think, a wonderful hearing actually discussing how we can increase public housing, the options really in the city of Boston, and that as a city, we need to take that as a moral obligation to make sure that this city maintains its commitment that everyone is welcome here, regardless of their income level. Over the years, BHA has carried out plenty of renovations and redevelopments and subsidy conversions to shore up our public housing portfolio. We discussed how that has continued and how we are moving towards a public-private partnership from the stewardship of the late, great Billy McGonigal and helping us to maintain. We've continued that. We further discussed how the lead sponsor, Councilor Bach, was part of this conversation while she was at BHA and is so happy to invite BHA back to be part of this conversation as she is a city councilor. The funny thing, I wouldn't say it, the irony being, my policy director is now in her former position, and he was testifying to me at the city council hearing. So that made me cry a little bit, not because I'm sad about the fact that he's gone, but more because I'm proud of the growth that I see in him. And I feel that way about all of my staff members. Thank you to all of them for everything. But honestly, it was a robust, great conversation. We were discussing the fair cloth limit and how and what financial resources we can gather as a city to make sure we meet that federal obligation. We are behind in our production of public housing, about 2,500 units. So with setting that goal, setting timelines to that goal, and making sure that we plug in funding for that goal, including arguing for funding that is pending at the State House, such as linkage and transfer fee, we think that we can come up with a pathway forward to make sure we meet those goals. So I'm going to turn it, if it's okay with Madam President, or I'd like to turn it over to the lead sponsor to summarize the hearing. But for now, I'd like to keep it in committee and allow for it so that we can have continued conversation. Madam President.
Thank you so much. Ooh, the docket 0894 will remain in the Committee of Housing and Community Development. Well, now I'm going to ask you, Madam Clerk, if you could please read the next. Councilor Bach, did you want to speak?
Oh, no, it's fine. Councilor Edwards had suggested I might speak briefly on the docket.
Oh,
but
I didn't hear that. I apologize. Councilor Bach, would you like to say a few words?
I'll be very brief. I'll just say it was a great hearing. I think that we have such a great opportunity in Boston. I first learned about the fair cloth limits, which is a limit on how many public housing units any given authority across the country can have. When, again, I was working for the Housing Authority. And in most parts of the country, that prevents people from building new public housing units. But in Boston, as Councilor Edwards said, we're actually 2,500 under the limit. And so I'm really excited about the work we started to do with BHA and D&D to look at ways to create those new units and just the variety of ways we could create them. So there's building new public housing on public land. There's thinking about our acquisition program where we could help acquire, buildings with a lot of tenants who are at risk of displacement when they're building flips. And instead, if it could get acquired, and then this subsidy could help us keep really low income families in those units. They could help us get lower income families into tax credit units, into IDP units, something that we struggle to do as a city. There's an opportunity to build this housing on top of libraries and like all kinds of public assets. I think it's a very versatile subsidy that used to be really hard to use because the federal government doesn't give us enough money per public housing unit. But there's a recent innovation called RAD that basically makes it so that it's more viable. So I'm really excited about this. I think, as Councilor Edwards alluded to, a plan forward is going to involve also figuring out how we mobilize capital resources and how we get more funds at the state. But it's not all dependent on that. It's a mix of things. And so it was a great hearing and looking forward to further work in the new year. So thank you, Madam President. And thank you today to Councilor Edwards, who I've been so privileged to go after on a number of occasions.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now move on. Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask if you could read three dockets together. They're 0735, 0736, and 0737. Please.
Certainly. Docket 0735, message in order for the confirmation of the reappointment of Rebecca Gutman as a member of the Boston Public Health Commission's Board of Health for a term expiring January 15th, 2023. Docket number 0736, message in order for the confirmation of the reappointment of Manny Lopes as a member of the Boston Public Health Commission's Board of Health for a term expiring January 15th, 2023. And docket number 0737, message in order for the confirmation of the appointment of Joel Valdez as a member of the Boston Public Health Commission's Board of Health for a term expiring January 15th, 2022.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Arroyo, who is chair of the Committee on Public Health. Councilor Arroyo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee held a hearing on Tuesday, November 8th, 2020, regarding the reappointments of Rebecca Gutman and Manny Lopes, who are both currently on the board. Manny Lopes is the chair. And the new appointment of Guale Valdez as members of the Boston Public Health Commission's Board of Health. Ms. Gutman was unable to attend the hearing, but did send a letter. And I believe we provided her resume, as well as the resumes of both Manny Lopes and Mr. Valdez, who is the president of the Mattapan Community Health Center. There's six positions on this board. Rebecca Gutman and Manny Lopes are both already on the board. Rebecca Gutman, I believe, is the union, the labor chair member on the board, the labor member of the board, and Manny Lopes is a community health center representative. We also have another community health center representative spot, which is what Mr. Valdez is up for. We also discussed, and I would like to thank Councilors Flynn and Councilor Sabi George for being present, and Councilor Mejia as well. The committee discussed various issues, including the diversity of the board currently, language accessibility and interpretation, the significance of youth voice and representation, and ensuring that the Boston Public Health Commission staff mirrors the residents of the city linguistically and culturally. As chair of the Committee on Public Health, I recommend moving the listed dockets from the committee to the full council for discussion and formal action. And at this time, my recommendation to the council is that dockets 0735 through 737 ought to pass. And both Ms. Gutman and Mr. Loeb should be reappointed, and Mr. Valdez should be appointed. Thank you.
Just to be clear, you're recommending that all 3 dockets pass?
Yes. So 0735, 0736, 0737.
Wonderful. And we're going to vote on these separately. Councilor Flynn, would you like to speak? You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to Councilor Arroyo. If I may speak very briefly, Madam President.
Yes.
It was a very good hearing we had. And what impressed me most about the people before us was their commitment to language access as it relates to public health access. And they all agreed that, we need to continue to work together to make sure that we have the right interpreters, we have the right translators, the right cultural sensitivity. But they're doing an excellent job on language access issues, but there's more work to be done. So I just wanted to highlight that and acknowledge the great work Councilor Arroyo did on a very robust hearing. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. Not seeing any other discussion, we will move now for votes. We're going to vote on these dockets separately. We will start with docket 0735. Councilor Arroyo seeks passage of all 3 dockets. Madam Clerk, if you could please call the roll on the first docket.
Docket 0735 for confirmation. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Janey.
Yes.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Wu.
Yes.
Councilor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 0735 has been confirmed unanimously.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to docket 0736 with a roll call vote.
Thank you. Docket 0736 for confirmation, Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Janey.
Yes.
Councilor Janey, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. And Councilor Wu.
Yes.
Councilor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number
Hey, Dan, can I
07,
call you back in 2 minutes?
docket
I'm just
073,
finishing up my weekly meeting. I'll call you back.
docket
Okay, bye.
0736 has been unanimously confirmed.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to docket 0737.
Docket 0737 for confirmation. Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell. Counselor Campbell. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn. Counselor Flynn.
On mute. Councilor Flynn, you're on mute.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. And Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Madam President, docket number 0737 has been confirmed unanimously.
Thank you so much. All three dockets have passed. We will now move on to motions, orders, and resolutions. At this time in our legislative cycle, it's very light, so everyone gets a gold star. Thank you so much. There was a resolution that couldn't be avoided because of the dates. And we will have Madam Clerk, if you could please read docket 1144 into the record.
Thank you. Docket 1144, Councilor Flaherty offer the following resolution recognizing the week of December 7th through the 13th, 2020 as Computer Science Education Week.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank to my colleagues as well for their indulgence. Computer science is a foundational science in our digital age, underpinning informational technology sector in our economy and transforming all industries, creating new fields of commerce, driving innovation and bolstering productivity in established economic sectors. And Computer Science Education Week is a week devoted to highlighting the importance of providing students, particularly those who are underrepresented in the field of computer science, the chance to participate in high quality computer science activities at all educational levels, and the role that computer science will play in the creation of jobs and impacts on the labor market for years to come. This week, in part, was selected as Computer Science Week in honor of the late Grace Murray Hopper, who was a Navy Rear Admiral and one of the first women in the field of computer science, whose birthday is actually today, December 9th, 1902. Grace was a pioneer in the field, responsible for engineering new programming languages and standards for computer science, which laid the foundation for many advancements in computer science. Across the Commonwealth and in our city, there's a great work being done by our Boston Public School teachers and educators, nonprofits, and business leaders to remove barriers to computer science courses and curriculum, as well as to equitably increase access to this growing field. One of the nonprofits is Digital Ready, and it was founded and led by Dr. Sarah Cherry Rice, who I've introduced all of you guys to as a co-chair in launching Boston Year 13. And she launched a computer science course with respect to the Boston Public School students in partnership with United Way and Microsoft in order to expand access to computer science curriculum. And in the first cohort, students hail from 11 different Boston public high schools. So great work to Sarah and her team over at Digital Ready. And I'm just asking today that we suspend and adopt this resolution, and we recommit ourselves to working with our Boston Public Schools, educators and nonprofit, business leaders, and other policymakers to remove barriers to high quality computer science classes at all educational levels for all of our students. And thank you once again, and looking forward for suspension and adoption. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Not seeing any discussion, or I'm going to now ask people who want to add their names to this resolution. Show of physical hands. Madam Clerk, if you could please add Councilor O'Malley, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Edwards, Councilor Baker, Councilor Braden, Councilor George, Councilor Bach, Councilor Arroyo, Councilor Wu, Councilor Campbell, Councilor Mejia. Please also add the chair. Councilor Flaherty seeks suspension of our rules and adoption of docket 1144. Madam Clerk. Would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Docket 1144 for adopted resolution. Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Sorry, yes.
That's okay. Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1144 has been unanimously adopted.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to personnel orders, and there are several, so we'll try to move quickly through those. Madam Clerk, could you please read docket 1145? In fact, if you could read all of the
All
documents,
of them, I think
that
that
would be the best.
makes right, okay.
Thank you.
That sounds great. Docket number 1145, Counselor Janey for Counselor Baker. Docket number 1146, Counselor Janey for Counselor Baker. Docket number 1147, Counselor Janey for Counselor Asabi George. Docket number 1148, Counselor Janey for Counselor Asabi George. Docket number 1149, Counselor Janey offered the following order for the appointments. Docket 1150, Counselor Janey offered the following order for the appointments. Docket 1151, Counselor Janey for Counselor Edwards. Docket 1152, Counselor Janey for Counselor Edwards. Docket number 1153, Counselor Janey offered the following order for appointments. Docket 1154, Counselor Janey offered the following order for appointments.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. The chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of all of these personnel order dockets. We're going to take each one separately and vote separately. Madam Clerk, we will start with docket 1145.
Thank you. Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards. Counselor Edwards.
You're on mute.
The other Edwards, right? Sorry, yes. I'm sorry.
Counselor, you're probably exhausted. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket 1145 has been passed unanimously.
Thank you. We'll keep moving.
Docket 1146, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, I think that was a yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1146 has passed unanimously. Docket number 1147, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yeah.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1147 has passed unanimously. Docket number 1148, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1148 has passed unanimously. Docket number 1149, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1149 has passed unanimously. Docket number 1150, excuse me, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1150 has passed unanimously. Docket 1151, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1151 has passed unanimously. Docket number 1152, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1152 has passed unanimously. Docket number 1153, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1153 has passed unanimously.
Last one.
Good, well.
Docket number 1154, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Campbell.
Yes.
Counselor Campbell, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Asabi George.
Yes.
Counselor Asabi George, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1154 has passed unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Moving right along. Councilor Wu, I see your blue hand up. Are you good?
Madam President, I didn't know at what point in the meeting, but I was a little late, so wanted to motion for reconsideration, if possible, to be recorded in the affirmative for two votes that took place at the beginning of the meeting. It was dockets 1143 and 1035, please.
Yes, Madam Clerk. you have it?
1143 and 1035.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Wonderful. So recorded.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Moving right along, no late files, which is a great thing. Does anyone want to remove something from the green sheets? I believe we do. Yes. The chair recognizes Councilor O'Malley, but before you get going, Councilor O'Malley, at this point, I just want you to direct us where we should go. We need to have the clerk read the docket. We need to make sure once people know what pages they're going to, that the email is sent. So if you could just give us some direction, Councilor O'Malley, I will call upon you again at the appropriate time.
Certainly, Madam President. Thank you. I'd like to invite all colleagues to turn to page 8 of 25 of the green sheets, and I'd like to put before the body docket 1117. Again, on page 8 of 25 of the green sheets, docket 1117.
Thank you. And so while that email is being sent so that you have the docket in front of you, I'm going to ask our clerk to read the docket. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. On page 8 of 25 of the green sheets, in the Committee on Environment, Resiliency and Parks, docket number 1117, sponsored by the mayor. A message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend a parkland acquisition and renovation for communities known as the Park Grant Program, awarded by the Massachusetts Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Division of the Conservation Services, in the amount not to exceed $400,000, to be administered by the Boston Parks and Recreation Department. The grant will fund the renovation of the Mission Hill Playground on Mission Hill. This was filed in committee on December 2nd, 2020.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And just to make sure we're crossing all of our T's and dotting our I's, would you mind polling the committee on parks, on environment, resiliency?
Just 1 minute.
Oh, I'm so sorry to catch you off guard.
I should have remembered that. Okay. On the Committee on Parks and Resiliency.
Yes, environment, resiliency, and parks.
Oh, it is right here. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Wu.
Yes, I apologize.
Councilor Wu, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. And Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Madam President, the Committee on Environment, Resiliency, and Parks voted unanimously to bring this matter before the body.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. At this time, the chair recognizes Councilor O'Malley, who is chair of the Committee on Environment, Resiliency, and Parks. Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Docket 1117 is an accept and expend for parkland acquisitions and renovations for communities, PARC grant, which will benefit the renovation of a playground in Mission Hill in District 8, something I know that Councilor Bach was instrumental in seeing being brought to fruition. Given the fact that we just received this last week, we did try to add this to our two other dockets. Yesterday's hearing, of course, we couldn't because it wouldn't have been posted with enough time. But given the fact that this is a $400,000 grant, which is going to complement a significant investment, about a $2.5 million investment that's already been made through this project, largely through Councilor Bach's leadership, and I believe Councilor Zachem before that, this will help make what's going to be a fantastic playground for the youth of Mission Hill even better. And this added buffer is going to, quite frankly, ensure that there will be a baseball field that was omitted from this project despite incredible support from the community. So this is actually a very, very good story. Those of you who know me know that I am very hesitant to pull something that's greater than six figures for a vote before a hearing. But given the fact that this has been such a vetted and universally beloved project, and it's only going to make that project better, while we will continue to have the robust community process, which began last month in earnest, and there's at least 2 or 3 more meetings to engage with residents on the design. But this will include even more amenities to the youth of Mission Hill. Wanted to again thank Councilor Bach for her leadership in this, and ask all colleagues that we're able to pull this and vote and authorize this money. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor O'Malley. The chair recognizes Councilor Bach. Councilor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to strongly support the chairman in pulling this from the green sheets. As alluded to, the Mission Hill Playground is a beloved resource in Mission Hill. It is at the heart of the neighborhood. It lies between the Basilica, which we get Mission Hill's name from, and the library and the Tobin School and the Tobin Community Center. I mean, it's just, you know, Mission Main on one side, Mission Grammar School. Everybody uses this playground. It is like a common resource in a deep way. It actually has 3 levels. An upper level along Tremont Street, which is where you will meet anyone you were trying to run into in Mission Hill, this playground level, and then the ball fields. And as Councilor O'Malley alluded to, well, we have a significant investment in the city budget in this. That money was really tagged for those first 2 levels. And yet the ball field has seen a lot of use. It has a lot of wear. It's actually got a side of it that's kind of where folks are from the housing development gather, and it needs some TLC. It's also been used a lot in this pandemic. You know, as part of the plan for the Tobin School when we're able to have school in person. So I think we really need investment in it. And we got so fortunate that the state came through with this $400,000 grant. So it's really important with that planning process ongoing, that the planning process be able to happen with all of this money sort of formally on the table. And I think it's going to be really responsive to the demands and desires of the Mission Hill community, that this money that's tagged for the field be in the mix too. So I would urge colleagues to vote for this today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Not seeing any other discussion. Councilor O'Malley seeks passage of docket 1117. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Councilor Arroyo. Oh, I'm sorry, on docket 1117.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Campbell.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Asabi George.
Yes.
Councilor Asabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Janey.
Yes.
Counselor Janey, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor O'Malley.
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley, yes. And Counselor Wu.
Yes.
Counselor Wu, yes. Madam President, docket number 1117 has passed unanimously.
Thank you so much. We will move on. There are no matters on the consent agenda, so we'll go right into announcements. Show of blue hands for anyone wishing to make an announcement, or physical hands. The chair recognizes Councillor Asabi George. Councillor Asabi George, you have the floor.
Sorry, looking for the unmute button. I just want to note that Hanukkah starts tomorrow night, and just wanted to wish the Boston Jewish community peace and light during this holiday season. I do personally love that Hanukkah is here just before Christmas, as it creates a little bit of an on-ramp to Christmas, which I celebrate, and just look forward to peace and light, and hopeful for the new year. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. Any other announcements? Not seeing any blue hands. I also want to wish everyone a happy and healthy Hanukkah. I had the honor of celebrating Hanukkah 2 years ago in Israel, and it was a very powerful, just very important, sentimental celebration for me. And I got to celebrate that with Councillor Campbell and Councillor Siomo, I believe, on the council. So thank you for that. We certainly wish everyone. And Councillor Flynn, yes. How could I forget you, Councillor Flynn? Because you wouldn't come out to the restaurants with us, that's why. But I do want to wish everyone a happy and healthy Hanukkah. You know, this is a very difficult time still in our city. And as we gather to celebrate, important to limit your gathering only to your household. Make sure that if there's someone dropping off food, that people are using the face coverings and certainly doing social distancing. So important as we go into the holiday season here, that we remember we are still in a pandemic. We're in the second surge. It is flu season, and we need to make sure we're doing everything that we can to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe. So thank you for that. We will now move on to our memorials to close out our meeting. For Councillor Baker, Johnny Antonelli, and Dominic Alessi. For Councillor Flaherty, Richard Woods. For Councillors Flaherty and Flynn, Jack Cross. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. The chair moves that when the council adjourns today, it does so in memory of the aforementioned individuals. We are scheduled to meet again on Wednesday, December 16th at 12 noon. This will be our last city council meeting of our legislative year. For the safety of the general public and all those involved, this meeting will be held virtually and posted online. Viewers can watch the council meeting live by going to YouTube or by visiting boston.gov/city-council-TV. Again, that's boston.gov/city-council-TV. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn today's council meeting, or seeing no objections to adjourning. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.